Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to season 5. Yes, season 5 indeed, and episode number 635 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Monday, April 28th, 2025. It is election day in Canada, kids and cubs. So hopefully, if you have not voted yet, you have a plan to get your vote on today. It is going to be a nice day here at the Beaver Lodge, it looks like. I am your host, the Eager Beaver. Pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca, or Psychic Tarot Canada. Before we go any further, Mr. Grizzly, how is your mental health doing today, sir?
I don't have an answer for you, in all honesty. I didn't sleep well last night. I tossed and turned the whole night. I had a brutal migraine yesterday afternoon that sidelined me. I was out. I was helping some friends out yesterday, and then I went and met a buddy for a bite to eat. And we were finishing up our meal, and we're just sitting in the sun having a Corona sun brew. And I looked at him and I go, "Oh, I gotta go." He goes, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I got a brutal migraine that just came on to the point where the color started to drain." So I was like, yeah. So I came home and I had all this stuff scheduled and ended up just on the couch, cold cloth over my forehead and my eyes with a mask. And yeah, it kind of sidelined my day. I didn't get a damn thing done other than, well, I did get a few things done in the morning, but my afternoon went sideways real quick. So from 2 to 6, I was on the couch. Trying to nurse my migraine, and then of course Bridget came over. We went for a walk with Lola and her parents, and I was not the most pleasant fellow last night because when you're suffering, you just have nothing to say, and
Yep.
You're kind of a veg. So I ended up going to bed immediately after the hockey game, and tried to sleep, and that was not successful. I was just toss and turn all night long, and my head's still pounding this morning. I just took a Tylenol, so hopefully I think this is all allergy and sinus related because I can feel it behind my eyes.
Okay.
And I've been a little stuffed up and sneezing and wheezing the last couple of days. So the trees are starting to bloom here in the nation's capital, and there's a lot of trees in my neighborhood, as you well know. So
Yeah, indeed. All right, kids and cubs. Well, I hope you that alleviates and sometime soon that you do get some rest.
yeah, me too.
I'm a little sleep deprived myself, kids and cubs. The light of my heart came to bed last night and appropriately snuggled because snuggling is mandatory, and but for some reason, my ear was really close to his mouth, and then he immediately proceeded to start snoring. So uh, these are natural today. Bags under my eyes. Um, a little hockey talk because Mr. Grizzly mentioned he was watching the game. Uh,
Both
Interesting thing.
Canadian teams lost yesterday.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I say it's both. LA and Edmonton played last night. I don't know, Vegas and Edmonton? No. Is it Vegas and Edmonton?
LA.
LA. No, LA,
LA.
yeah.
Yeah.
Vegas is playing somebody else. I didn't see that game because I was obviously in bed at that point. But Montreal lost and Winnipeg lost. I saw
Yeah.
a good chunk of the Winnipeg game,
Mhm.
and despite what the score showed, it was much closer than
Oh,
that.
yes.
Same
Yes.
thing with the Montreal game. The score in the end was because, they
They're
got
20 netters.
two empty netters, yeah, so
Yeah.
closer than the score. That being
Uh,
said, though, Washington did play a better game.
yes.
Their veterans stepped up to the plate and showed it last night. Montreal's the youngest team in the NHL,
Yeah.
youngest team ever to make the playoffs.
But they had
So
the lead.
they did, but they only had like 11 shots or 12
I
shots the whole
I
game.
know.
So you can't win like that.
I do not understand that in hockey. It's like,
Montreal's been doing that for years, though. They used to rely on Carey. Okay, we'll score 2 goals and Carey Price will stop everything. You don't have Carey Price anymore. And right now, both teams are using their backup goalies.
but still keep shooting the goal.
Shooting, keep shooting, keep just keep shooting.
Yes, they can't go in if you don't shoot. Shoot.
Yeah, look, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
Ah, just shoot. Never understood that.
Yeah.
Frustrates me to no end. It's like the whole goal of it is to put the puck in the net, so put the puck towards the net.
Mhm.
Ugh.
Oh, I
But yeah,
haven't filed my taxes. Thanks for reminding me. PNC
yes,
bio.
yes,
Got
with all that's going on.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'll have to get on that today.
yeah. So yeah, the Canadians and Capitals split their matches over the course of the weekend. So Capitals are up 3-1 in the series. The Jets lost their two on the road. So that series is tied up at 2. Ottawa staved off elimination by winning one at home. So that
Thank
one is,
goodness.
3-1 there. And Edmonton did win its 2, including a 4-3 win in overtime. Draisaitl,
Oh, awesome.
the
So that series is tied up now.
yes, that one's tied up now. So there you go. And if you're watching the World Championship under 18, Team Canada is at the top of the pool, having won every match so far, with the last match in pool play against Norway at 5 p.m. Eastern today. And if everything goes according to form, Canada should finish at the top of that pool. So there you go. And also, the World Mixed Doubles Curling Championships are going on. Jocelyn Peterman and Brent Gallant, who are married and are
Mhm.
representing Team Canada, are so far a perfect 3-0 there. And not only trying to win the championship, but do well enough to secure our berth at the Olympics. Because this year, with the changes in curling, because they won the national championship, if they qualify for the Olympics, they qualify Team Canada for the Olympics, they will get to represent Team Canada. There won't
Mm.
have to be another play down, and then so they'll get a full year on the tour playing as Team Canada before going into. No, actually, they won't. Actually, will they?
I don't know.
Yes,
You're
they
the
will. Yes,
curling guy.
because it's next February. Yes, I'm just thinking it's like it's 2026. Yes, but we have 3 seasons to go through yet
Okay.
before we get there. So yes, it is next year, but so they'll have a full year. So yeah, they're doing really well at the moment, and I'm not sure that that one's televised, but for people who are curling fans, I believe it is available on one of the curling channels on YouTube if you want to watch it. So there you go. All right, polls as we normally do. This is the last one we're going to do here. Things seem to have stabilized in terms of the narrowing and all that kind of stuff, and it's pretty much what we thought would be going into the weekend. Not much happened. There wasn't a big break or anything like that. So everything's pretty much steady, according to 338. If I'm taking a look at this here, The spread is down to 4 points, 43-39 for conservatives. So, sorry, 43 liberal, 39 conservatives, not 43-39 for the conservatives. You have to be precise. Um, Again, this is showing uh, very tight race in British Columbia, 21 conservative to 20 liberal there, uh, showing the liberals taking 7 in Manitoba over 5 for conservative, and 82 in Ontario and 42 for Quebec. So, pretty strong showing here for the liberals. A little tick up according to 338 going into voting day. They're looking at 186 seats to 124. Conservatives taking a little dip in the last 2 reporting periods, going to the finish line. The Bloc seems to have stabilized their rise because they were at a low of about 16 seats somewhere in the campaign. This one's predicting about 23 seats in all. Again, Blanchet has been stating with some conviction that he is going nowhere after this, but that close to, if it's under 25, um, I'd say there might be not be a push to get him out right away, but he might start looking at his prospects of perhaps running for the Parti Québécois in the next provincial election coming in
Well, I
October.
mean, his commentary the other day really didn't help
Yeah,
him,
yeah,
especially during the current situation where Quebec has been the most patriotic it's been in what, since Expo '67, maybe.
yeah, yeah. Um, Blanchet referred to at the beginning of the campaign that he would sort of emulate Jacques Parizeau in
Mm.
that he would do a slow intellectual striptease throughout the campaign, having policy every single day, and that didn't help him break through. So he might be trying to uh, inadvertently, when you mentioned Jacques Parizeau, the irony of this might be that he might end a little bit like Parizeau. If you remember,
What was the
after the
statement?
referendum, he made a comment about money and the ethnic vote.
Yeah, this is the ethnic. It's yeah. It's like, well,
Yeah, yeah. So, being one of the major reason for which the referendum bid did not succeed, and here it seems in the waning days of the campaign, Monsieur Blanchet, who made a big deal over the course of the debates of respect us when speaking of Quebec. And at the beginning of the campaign, made a big point of saying that Quebec was willing to be an ally. Well, I'm guessing with him at the helm, that's no longer an option.
well, his statement that Canada is an artificial country. I'm like, what?
Hmm.
Say, I'm sorry, what,
Hmm.
dude?
Hmm.
You're not winning any favorites.
Yeah, yeah, that is not doing you any good.
You're trying to
And
assure a liberal victory in the province. I mean,
well, but here's the thing, right? It's so counterintuitive to what he's been doing because for the last 2 weeks since the debate, right, it's been, well, Mr. Kearney, you say you have these skills, but I've seen no evidence of that. And then
mm,
again, when we was talking about that phone call, right, that readout, when nobody mentioned that Donald Trump said something about the 51st state somewhere in that conversation. You know, saying, "Oh yeah, he's trying to make it look like it was this whole big thing, but really it was nothing there." So there's been this uh, campaign on his part to uh, just really try to kneecap
hmm
Carney on his competence. You might have a lot of competence in economics, but you don't have any competence in politics. And I hope that you would. He didn't say bow down, but it was coming across like this: that you would bow down and accept that there's other people that have experiences that are more that have more experience in certain areas than you do, because you don't seem to be really open to that, right?
why is he so angry, Blanchette? Like, what's with the anger there? Like,
I'm not sure what the edge is this particular time around, to be totally honest. Um, but it Blanchet was on life support in the previous election until Satyajit Kurl gave him that
hmm
question, right? That basically said, "Why are Quebecers racist?" for all intents and purposes.
Mhm.
And then he went throughout the province for the last 2 weeks of the campaign or however was left going, "Oh my God, can't you believe she said that?" Nail, 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 nail. His own
Mhm.
hammers, his own nails, his own cross,
Yeah.
and going all around Quebec doing that, and turned it around because he was looking at 21 seats back then. If he lost, his career was over there at the Bloc Québécois. So he got like pinball, right? He got extra balls. And this campaign, he was hoping to make that go again because in the province of Quebec, the Parti Québécois is leading at the moment, could maybe get a majority at the next provincial election. It's sort of teetering on the edge there. And the leader has explicitly said that he will have a referendum on separation.
Mhm.
So Blanchet's nipples are hard right now, right? But he can't break through federally. He wants to be there for that moment. This is what he's dreamed of. But he's taking 36 seats, whatnot, and might be parlaying that to 25, 23, maybe 21,
Yeah, we'll find out.
right? So there might be some grumbling, particularly at this moment. There might be another person in the Bloc Québécois thinking, this is my moment to come up and take the helm, especially given that there's talk of a potential referendum coming up there. So Blanchet's now Blanchet's future is not over. Like he didn't kill
Mhm.
himself. If he wants to run for a PQ seat in the next provincial election, he'll probably get it, no problem.
No doubt.
But he's got the easiest job in the world right now. If you're in Quebec as the leader of Bloc Québécois, just take anything that the Quebec Assemblée Nationale says, bring it to Ottawa and says, why aren't you acting on that? Get on it.
Like, he
Chop,
literally
chop.
doesn't have to do anything more than that.
If he's an actual PQ candidate, he's actually going to have to be answerable to people every day
Yeah.
afterwards.
Well, one of the things I think that will make the outcome of this election interesting. There's unity with Quebec is not a huge issue right now, and it hasn't been for a number of years,
Mhm.
for a number of reasons.
Mhm.
You have to look at how much the world has changed since the last vote on separation. We didn't have smartphones. Most people didn't have a cell phone back then, let alone smartphones didn't even exist. Social media didn't exist. The internet wasn't as big a thing in 1992 as it is today. It existed, but it was amongst a few geeks, literally.
Mhm.
So now you have had an entire generation and then some who have been online and reading about the rest of the world and the rest of the country. And many of these folks have decided to get outside of the bubble that the Bloc or the PQ used to like to keep them in and tell them Canada hates you. It's like, no, we don't.
No.
We know there's been alienation felt in Quebec, just as there is in the western part of the country. We know that. But Canada doesn't hate you. You're just as Canadian as the rest of us. Matter of fact, I think you're actually a little bit older than most of us, right? Like, I mean,
You're the original Canadien.
ben oui, là. So with Mark Carney at the helm, as opposed to Pierre Poilievre, who is a divider in chief,
Mhm.
Mark Carney, I think, will have more to do with unity in this nation than Pierre Poilievre ever could.
Mhm.
Because Poilievre just drives a wedge between everybody. They love to say Trudeau did that. And I'm like, who was
Yeah.
out there, campaigning with angry, hateful people who literally brought nooses to rallies? And you didn't decry that, Mr. Poilievre.
Mhm.
You did not speak down to that. There was a time when a political opponent, if you showed up at their rally with something like that, they would have said, no, there's no place for that in this country. There's no place for that in politics. We do
Yeah.
not do that here. Poilievre never spoke down about that.
Oh, no.
Ever.
No.
Not once. So who's the divider? Him. Carney will unite people because they've already got the F Carney flags. He didn't even
Oh, yeah.
address it. He doesn't give a shit.
Yep.
He doesn't care.
Yep.
He doesn't care.
Yep.
It's the same way Trudeau really didn't care either.
Mhm.
Although the one guy who put that on the back of his car window in Alberta when Harper was the prime minister,
Mm.
so they called Trudeau a dictator.
Mhm.
People literally flying flags all over Parliament Hill for 3 weeks,
Mhm.
screaming for his head.
Mhm.
What did he do to them? Oh, he brought in the Emergencies Act. Well, they had to after 3+ weeks because the province and the city abandoned us.
Yes. And, by the way, he didn't threaten to invoke the notwithstanding clause.
No. And how many people were arrested for flying flags? None. They were
Mhm.
given 72 hours notice to vacate, and if you don't vacate, you will be arrested. And with the exception of a handful of them, they're all free.
Mhm.
How many bank accounts were seized? 50?
Mhm.
50.
I'm not sure the exact number, but it wasn't a huge number.
It was very low.
Yep.
And those seizures were not permanent.
No, most of them were lifted within 24 hours.
Exactly.
Yep.
But we have, again, Stephen Harper had a guy arrested and charged for having a F. Harper sticker on the back of his window.
Some people are just so sensitive.
So one's a dictator and one, hey man, free country.
Yep.
Freedom of expression. I don't like what you're saying, but you have the right to say it.
Yeah.
Funny how that works, eh?
Indeed. So, Blanchet saying that we are an artificial country strikes me as particularly ironic because during the entire debate, he was trying to goad someone on stage to say something similar about Quebec. And if somebody had said something similar about Quebec, again, Blanchet would be roaming the province like he did after Sachi Curl, bringing his own wood, hammer, and nails.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Right? But apparently it's okay. So Blanchet's taking a little bit of Poliev tones near the end of the campaign. Rules for thee. You're not allowed to say that Quebec is not really a culture or nation. It is. But you're not allowed to say that. But I'm allowed to say Canada is not an artificial country. And then he turns around later and goes, well, I didn't mean it in an insulting way or something.
And is that supposed to be a positive reinforcement? I'm sorry.
Right? I'm sitting there and
You're
I'm
not a
thinking,
real person. Excuse me?
but I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, oh, yeah, right, buddy, because that would have been enough for you.
Mhm. To lose your shit over.
Had anybody did it the other way. Sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't mean it as an insult. It's like the very supposition, the very insufficiency of that as a response is in
Mhm.
itself insulting,
Indeed.
sir. I am sure that's what you would say if it was the other way around. L'insuffisance même est une insulte. So, come on. Hmm? On se calme le pompon un peu.
Yeah, it's like
Of course, you have
it's like Blanchette, Monsieur, please get down off the cross. We need the wood.
we're building homes.
Mm.
Uh, of course, Tim Houston
Mm.
decided that he saw a little opportunity in this and decided to send a letter because I guess that's what we do when we're a premier. Uh, Dear Monsieur Blanchet, I was dismayed recently regarding comments that you made yesterday about sorry, I was dismayed recently reading comments that you made yesterday about Canada. We are, whether we like it or not, part of an artificial country with very little meaning called Canada. I find it difficult to find the words to adequately describe how insulting the statement is to all Canadians and to our great nation. Please let me assure you that Canada is not an artificial country. Citizenship in Canada means something. It stands for something. We should all be profoundly proud to live in a country as incredible as Canada. Aside from all the beauty, resources, and wonderful people, we should all be proud of Canada for our freedom, for our safety and security, for our democracy, for free healthcare. Of course, we have our challenges, but there's absolutely nowhere in the world I would rather live and nowhere else that has the opportunities that we have. What is it about Canada that you don't like? You have been a politician since 2008, paid by Canadians. Why haven't you done your part to work towards improving this country we should all love so dearly? I am proud to be Nova Scotian, and I am proud to be Canadian. I would hope that anyone asking for the honor of representing Canadians would feel the same pride in this country and constantly work to do whatever it takes to make things better for the people and places they serve. I hope going forward you will reflect on what it means to be Canadian and take more pride and honor in being an elected official in Canada. If you can't do that, I would ask you to step inside in favor of those who put our country first. Yours truly, Honorable Tim Houston. Now, A lot of people are going, yeah, rah, 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 rah. Mr. Blanchet does not want to be Canadian,
No,
Mr. Houston.
he doesn't. I mean, it's as
There's
simple as
there's a
that.
little part you missed here
Yeah, he
i-
doesn't. He doesn't want to be.
in your opportunity to grandstand here. Now,
He's
don't get
showing
me wrong.
signs, though. I mean, when he got his security clearance, to it's like, okay,
Well,
all right, you're on Team Canada, okay,
well,
but then he turns around and does what he does.
well, here it is. You have to understand again, right? With Blanchet, is he's on Team Canada so long as it's good for Team Quebec,
Yes, yeah,
right? Now, you have to understand when we're dealing about foreign interference, right? Blanchet, this is thing that the sovereigntist movement, the nationalist movement, Quebec never admits. But the fact that Quebec is part of an actual G7 nation from coast to coast to coast
hmm
is that does have a policy of official bilingualism, as flawed as it is, right? But that goes on the world stage and says Canada has a French core. There's a
yes,
francophone
always
element
has.
that's carried. All of that, this defending that does protect that.
Mhm.
If Quebec were to be its own nation on its own, and Canada, other than the little bit of French Canadians and Acadians that live everywhere else, there was no reason for Canada anymore to actually promote, defend, have a policy of official bilingualism, and it was surrounded by all those more number of people and whole other nation with no vested interest in any way, shape, or form. That would be more threatening to the French fact. And definitely,
Mhm.
if Quebec were to be invaded by the United States or become part of the United States, French would go the way of what it is in Louisiana.
Yeah, it would cease to exist within a few decades.
The
To to
move,
to yeah, an unbelievable state. Well, look,
right? The movement isn't stupid, right? It's self-preservation. Like
what would happen to Quebec if all of a
hiding.
sudden equalization payments ended,
Mhm.
or transfer payments, or whatever we call them today? What happens, right? Like
Yeah,
the province is in
it,
deep shit.
it would be vice versa, though, right? There would be
Mhm.
funds that Quebec funds that come into the national coffers would remain there too.
No,
But
but I mean, if Quebec were to separate, is what
yeah,
I'm
yes.
saying.
And I know that, but that's what I mean. Those funds would stay there, but they would have to take on full costs of national defense and a full
Correct.
diplomatic corps now and a full, right, immigration system and all that type of stuff. So that's what I mean. It's never just one for one, right? This whole dream,
Well,
like
and let's not forget how much of the
separating everybody will be
provinces,
like it is.
how much the province is treaty territory as well, right?
Yeah. So, but the whole movement understands that the United States is the bigger threat, right?
Yes.
So they would like when they keep on saying the sovereignty association, it's like they would like to become an independent nation, but always have this like buddy buddy relationship in some way with Canada because they know the United States is always there. Yes. The chessboard is changing now.
hmm
There's a there's a lot more obvious advantages to remaining within Canada, where at worst there's some benign neglect towards the francophone fact, as opposed to oh well, we don't need this, let's just stomp it out.
hmm
What purpose does this serve? So there is a delicate dance there, and voters in Quebec are among the savviest in the nation.
hmm
Like so understanding that they know how to extract maximum advantage out of being part of Canada, while still having like the stick with the little bag on the going like this. If you don't give me what I want, I'm going to leave now. I really
The
mean
Vindle.
it.
Yeah.
So they've figured out that balance. Unlike Alberta, under Daniel Smith, who's trying, well, let's just do what Quebec does, but she's so ham-fisted about it that it's not. It is the Quebec Canada one is this subtle dance,
Well,
you know,
and
and this
when
is
it comes to
the Alberta
Alberta,
one's this herky jerky thing.
well, and you have to remember too, many in Alberta are just trying to. They feel the Western alienation, which is a real thing.
Yeah,
It absolutely is. But you have somebody like Daniel Smith saying, "Here's what we're going to do, and we're going to get to keep all this money." Uh,
you're gonna
about
meet
that.
you're gonna meet all our demands in 6 months or else. Look, Quebec, how long has Quebec been at it?
Well, and the entirety
months?
of the prairies are on treaty territory.
Yeah.
So
Well,
good luck with that.
But I mean, 6 months? Really?
Never going to happen.
Really?
Well, you can't get
Do
an
you know how
order
long
of
Quebec had
Tylenol
to?
correct.
Do you know how long Quebec had to argue just to get the fiscal imbalance fixed? 6
Well,
months? Really?
lives in a fantasy world.
And it only got fixed when there came a national election and conservatives really wanted to get some votes in Quebec. So, okay, fine, we'll fix the fiscal imbalance.
Hmm.
And then Jean Charest did the stupid thing, and rather than put it to service of Quebecers, gave it all away as a tax cut.
It was not very smart on his
Dum dum.
part.
That's why that's why there's not much avenue for him in politics again, although he might have his eye on on the Conservative Party of Canada leadership once Pierre's gone.
Well,
Especially if
and
some people are going to look at this as my hope is that progressive conservatives throughout Canada,
because they
I guess,
still exist.
yes, will look at this and says, you know what, this is their moment of weakness right now. They're going into a civil war. So let's all of us just flood. Let's
Hmm.
pick one candidate. Let's have when the next leadership goes, and all of us just buy tons of memberships, and we make sure that one person wins. And you know what? Liberals and New Democrats,
There's your
you
chance.
can let your membership lapse in the party for 1 year, buy one, and make sure that happens. It's democracy. Let's have a hostile takeover of the Conservative Party of Canada to make it a progressive Conservative Party again.
It
That
can
would
be
be cool.
done. It can be done. It should be done. I hope
Hostile
it happens.
takeovers go both ways,
Yes. Well, look,
and they showed us the playbook. They showed us how to do it.
chances are very good that Pierre Poilievre will lose his seat tomorrow, or this evening, I should say. Tomorrow he'll find himself technically out of a job in many respects, but
Stop
he's
pumping me
still
with hope, Mr. Grizzly. Stop
well,
pumping me with hope.
he's still going to be the party leader. But how long will that last? Usually they step down and
Well,
get out of
especially in this
politics.
party.
But Andrew Scheer stepped down, but he didn't leave. He's still in politics.
Pierre is going to hang on by the fingernails. There's going to be
Of course.
fingernails in the floorboards.
He doesn't know what else to do. Is he going to reinvent himself? I mean, look, he could start drawing his pension. You know,
Nope,
he's got
to wait.
money.
He's got to wait till 55 for that.
55. Yeah, still 10 years.
Yep, he's got to earn a living for 10 years somehow.
Well, he's got a few dollars put away, I'm told. How much, I don't know. Everybody says, oh, he's worth 12 million, 9 million, 12 million, 21 million.
Way of knowing that.
Nobody's ever proved that.
Yeah, there's no way of knowing that.
There's no way. There's no way. I mean, look, we know that he has a nice collection of watches, one of them being a Patek Philippe, which was a gift. It's a $125,000 watch. I don't know who gave it to him. You know, that's a pretty expensive gift.
Yeah.
Like what
But
do you do to get a gift like that?
those types of things. I mean, we don't. Whatever people are telling you, unless it's like Forbes or that kind of stuff, and even that we found with Trump, it could be like the numbers could be jigged up and whatnot.
Yes.
It's like nobody really knows what people are worth.
Nobody
Really.
knows. Look,
Really.
is he wealthy? Yes. Is he
No
comfortable?
doubt.
Absolutely. I mean, he hasn't had to pay a bill in a few years now, so
20.
well, no. I mean,
There's a lot of free food when you're a politician. Let's just put it that way.
that's true. That's true. Free food, free drink. Right now, he has free housing. He didn't have free housing before, but he does get subsidization for his housing because he's from Calgary, even though his riding is here. So I don't know how that works exactly because his riding is here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, his
So
riding is here, yeah.
he wouldn't get any subsidization.
No,
for
he wouldn't
that,
get
would
any subsidization. He gets his subsidization from Michael Cooper.
Yes, who rents his house that his
Sorry.
wife bought, rents his house from Cooper, and his wife works for Cooper.
That was bitchy. Sorry. Anyway.
Fingers in all the
pies. All right. So that's the whole Bloc Québécois sort of thing side of the aspect there. Blanchet just edgy and angry and ironically making the mistakes that he wanted to goad other people into making as it ends, which may, again, in this particular mood, as Mr. Grizzly mentioned, which Quebecers are in, may not play well. And has been campaigning a lot around the North and South Shore of the Montreal area, which means that he is concerned about losing seats and trying to save as many as he can. I think Blanchet knows If it's 36 seats, I'd say if it's 24 under, you've lost a third of your seats. I'm pretty sure that there's going to
Mhm.
be some writing on the wall at some time soon. He'll be allowed the dignity to make an exit on his own terms, but I have a feeling that, yeah, 24 or under, it, start the clock
Yeah.
with him. Now, also, um, oh God, um, normally at this stage of the campaign, you're hearing stories of mad, frenetic pacing, cross country tours on the last day, taking the plane and starting at 6 o'clock in the morning in St. John's and then going to all the other places and making the time zones work for you. So you have like one last big thing. And
Not happening.
yeah, that did not happen this time around. And well, there's a very good reason for it.
Are they
Uh,
allowed to campaign today? I don't think so, huh?
yeah, they're allowed to campaign. Yes, to a certain extent, like, for example, they're allowed to, like, knock on doors and make sure, like,
In their
that you get the
riding?
vote out and all that kinda stuff, and yeah, but I'm not sure if there's rules like new media interviews and that type of stuff or like this, but there is some campaigning that is allowed, on,
Election day?
on election day, yes. Um, oh boy. So, yeah, yesterday, um, there was a tragic event.
Oh, that
th-
was the yeah.
that took place.
And then the
And
conservatives decided to try and utilize that, and they are in hot water for it.
yes, so
I have the video clip here from Global News.
yeah, uh, there is a
Tried to link it to the liberal crime policy, and it's like it's just no,
yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah, and we'll get to that. So yesterday we found out that there's a 30-year-old Vancouver man who's facing 8 charges of second-degree murder after having driven an SUV into a crowd gathered for a Filipino street festival for something that's called Lapu Lapu Day in Vancouver. At last count, 11 people, ages 5 to 75, have had their lives taken from them, and
Mhm.
dozens are injured. Onlookers held the person who did this down so that he may be arrested. The Vancouver Police Department does not believe the suspect's motives are terror related. His motives are not known. The interim police chief, Steve Rye, says, quote, the person we have in custody does have a significant history of interactions with police and healthcare professionals related to mental health.
Mhm.
Uh, the it's a Lapu Lapu Day. It's a big celebration for the community. It's a celebration of resilience of collective resistance that commemorates the victory in 1521 by Indigenous Filipinos led by Lapu Lapu against Spanish colonizers on the island of Mactan. There was a big event, street festival. Yeah, even the Black Eyed Peas were there.
Oh, really?
Yes. So members of the Black Eyed Peas had just finished their headlining set uh, when the incident happened. So, you know, peak attendance.
Hmm.
Uh, People who were on the scene describe people flying into the air like bowling pins.
Yeah, I heard it was bad. I haven't watched any video clips of it. I
Yeah,
just didn't want to.
I can't. Um, Anagbayan, British Columbia, helped organize a candlelight vigil on Sunday evening to remember victims, which drew a crowd so large that police in Vancouver had to move the crime scene barriers back so that people would not spill out onto the busy traffic along 41st Avenue. RJ Aquino, the chair of the Filipino BC organization, said, looking at the history of our people, we've encountered many tragedies and we're going to be okay. It's okay not to feel okay right now. It's okay to be sad, be angry, be confused. But as we work through those feelings, we will have each other to do that. We'll need to make sure to be there for each other to do that. There's no better time really to live up to the Bayanihan spirit and say that we are here to lift each other up. Bayanihan refers to a community spirit in Filipino culture And the need to lead into it was echoed by several others on Sunday. Yayela Villegas from Migrante, British Columbia, a Filipino organization fighting for migrant workers' rights in British Columbia, said, "I didn't just see my Filipino community. It was also other communities or nationalities or even religions. They came to support us. And that's so very comforting." A Palestinian earlier came up to me and said, "Your loss is our loss." And I think it's so heartwarming.
Mm.
So when an event like that happens during an election, you're going to look at how the leaders react, respond, if the campaign shifts in any way.
Mhm.
When it's the last day of the campaign, when you got like, this is our final push, we're showing enthusiasm, we're showing momentum, we're like, it tempers everything, right? There's a somber cloud that's just come over the last day. It's kind of awkward to be at a rally going, okay, everybody, let's go. Yeah. When that has happened. It's also an opportunity. As they say in the United States often, they talked about Barack Obama, the consoler in chief concept. So it's can the prime minister bring the people together? Can he provide comfort, calm, reassurance in times like these? So this is a test. We get to see our candidates in action in the real world if something were to happen before we vote. Yeah, let's go to that thing. Okay, so we have Mr. Eby, Premier of British Columbia. And I want to bring this, I mean, he's doing the boilerplate statement, but I want to bring out this particular segment. There's two segments here. The first one, very, very important that he noted this.
Call who want to come in. We've got 7 more ambulances on shift. And I know it wasn't just the paramedics. It was the police. It was the fire department. It was the workers in the hospitals. Everyone from the people who keep the hospital clean, to the lab techs, to the doctors and nurses who responded to this tragedy. And I want to say, many of whom themselves are Filipino. May have known people who were out celebrating that day. I want to say my deep appreciation on behalf of the entire province to those people who stepped up in heroic ways last night. To the people who grabbed the perpetrator and held him, for police who restrained themselves in a moment of what must have been unbelievable restraint, to not exact justice right there in that moment, but instead to turn him over to authorities.
No kidding. Because what would your emotion be in a moment like that?
Yeah.
I would have to walk away because I know how I would react.
Yeah.
I would have to walk away.
The people who did that and did not engage in vigilante justice.
Yeah.
Hats off, respect.
The amount of self-control and internal strength it took to not cause harm to that person.
Yep. And the trust in the system.
It's mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
This is a community that is suffering right now. We're going to put our arms around them as all British Columbians. We're going to stand with them. We're going to support them just like they support us every single day in this province. It's their turn. It's their turn to get care from us. And I want to thank Mabel and her team, who's ground zero on this street, for responding to the tragedy. And I want to thank the organizers of that incredible event. It's an event that was needed and deserved. It was a celebration that was overdue for the people who make this province work, the Filipino community. This evening I'll be meeting with the Prime Minister and with leaders from the Filipino community. I've had outreach from the leaders of every major party. We've had conversations with the Consul General of the Philippines, and we're all working together to make sure that the Filipino community is supported.
You can tell.
Yeah, he was visibly troubled by that.
Yeah.
You could see it. And man, why? How could you not be, right?
Yeah. But I mean, I'm welled up a bit. And yes, it's sad, but it's like not the events, it's so much. It's like I can tell that this man is actually connected to that community for real.
Oh, clearly.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and that he is actually genuinely sharing the pain. And therefore, right? It's like when I go to the funeral and I don't necessarily know the person who's passed away, but I'm going because they were dear to someone who's dear to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. And I start crying. And it's like, why are you crying? You didn't know the person who's passed. Yes, but somebody I love is in pain.
Yeah.
I see
You
it, so
feel
I'm
for
crying.
you feel for others.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the kind of thing that's going on when I hear him speak in this way of what's going on there in the Filipino community in British Columbia. Very, very active and very community oriented, and I know a tiny, tiny little bit from experience. My first partner, with whom I was with for 4 years, and we were best friends for 20-something years afterwards. His sister married into the Filipino community over there. So, um, I grew up with a connection like that for pretty much since I was 16. So yeah, it's a tough day. They're just the nicest people. It's just oh God. Oh.
All right. Okay. Where were all of you when I launched my leadership? No, this is what we need. I'm going to say a few serious things in a moment, but I want to start with one of the most serious things, which is a question, which is who is ready? Who is ready?
This is not the clip that.
Yeah, that's the clip. Go ahead.
It is okay.
Yeah.
Who is ready to stand up for Canada? Who is ready to stand up for Canada with me? And who is ready to send an amazing slate of Liberals from Edmonton and Northern Alberta to Ottawa to win the most consequential election of our lifetimes? That's why they're there. That's why I'm up here. That's why you're here. Thank you for being here. As Amarjeet did, in all seriousness, I want to begin by acknowledging the shock, the horror, the heartbreak that we all felt with the terrible events in Vancouver, the horrific attack at the festival last evening. I want to commend the quick, rapid, compassionate actions of those who were there and the first responders, and extend my deepest condolences and wishes for strength and compassion to all those affected, the friends and family who lost ones and the injured. I know all of you and all Canadians join me in solidarity with them. You know, the strength and the resilience of the Filipino-Canadian community here in Edmonton Southwest, across Edmonton, in Vancouver, Lower Mainland, across this country. It's exemplified in many ways, but I drew back on in the middle of the night when I was learning of this, Bienihan, which is a concept in many ways of family, of spirit of community cooperation and unity coming together to achieve a common goal. And I think we draw on that at this incredibly difficult time in solidarity, in comfort and grieving, to unite in a common purpose. But if I may, it is also the spirit, because it's a very positive spirit. It's about buildings. It's about coming together to help to build. And this is much of what this election
All right. So the reason I wanted to present this to you is these were the first public comments that
Mhm.
Mark Carney made following morning after following hearing the news, right? So they're at the campaign and they're trying to walk this balance between enthusiasm when he's announced the yay, the cheering, whatnot like this, and dealing with serious things. Now you'll see Mr. Carney hinted right at the beginning that there's some serious stuff coming like this, did the rah-rah thing and immediately went back into the serious thing, right? There's maybe about 1 minute of rah-rah, went to the serious thing, and then you see at the end how he used it at the end to transition to what he was there to do for the rally.
Mhm.
The spirit of Bayanihan, to build, coming together, and that's what we need to do. So overall, pretty good. Pretty good. The cheering is awkward,
Mhm.
right?
I think so
Because
too.
this is going on. Yes. But the reason I wanted to bring it to you because originally I was looking at the Pierre one and I was seeing the cheering at the beginning. I'm thinking like, this sounds a little odd. And then I went back and I saw the kind of okay. So there is naturally going to be cheering for the first one in the morning, right?
Mhm.
You don't have a
Mhm.
chance to get there and cue everybody and all that kind of stuff. Tell them like, don't cheer, don't.
Yeah.
The audience is there to cheer. That's why they came,
Mhm.
right? So the first one you'd expect that, and then you should see how it goes throughout the day. So this is really for you to understand how long it takes them to get to the subject matter, how they talk about it, and how they transition away from it for what they're because that reveals a lot about the person.
Thank you very much. Who's voting for change? Who's voting for food and you can afford for a change? Who's voting to axe the taxes for a change? Who is voting for safe streets for a change? And who's voting to bring home the Canadian promise for change? Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Nous sommes ici aujourd'hui pour renforcer la promesse du Canada que chacun qui travaille fort peut avoir une belle vie dans une belle maison abordable sur une rue sécuritaire. Mais pour le faire, il faut que ça change. On ne peut pas payer le prix pour un quatrième mandat libéral. On a besoin d'un nouveau gouvernement conservateur qui va couper les taxes et les impôts, bâtir des logements, libérer nos ressources et renforcer le Canada pour faire changement. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Thank you very much. This guy says he loves my jeans. I normally don't wear jeans. Thank you. Thank you. A treasured letter. A beautiful message. What an incredible crowd we have here today. Thank you very much for rallying for change with me today. Before I begin, I want to encourage everybody to offer their prayers to the Filipino community in British Columbia who faced a horrific attack yesterday. All of us are reaching out to them and offering our total solidarity. May the lost souls be blessed and rest in peace, and may their families have peace here on this earth. Thank you very much for sharing your prayers.
And
And then he just transitions. Did you feel the warmth, the care?
no. No. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's upsetting.
No attempt to relate to the community whatsoever. Carney actually went and found out what the spirit of
Mhm.
Banyan is. Now, again, I mean, it's right there, out in the open. He's just not the guy. He's just not the guy.
Okay, let's get back to focusing on me.
Man,
Well,
unbelievable.
Christian, I think, knocks it out of the park with this comment. Dude said 20 years to make change and fails at every occasion.
Yeah.
Let's have change in the Carleton riding, the P.N. Carleton, where he currently resides, and should be losing to Bruce Fanjoy this evening, hopefully.
Yes. Yes. Because Pierre Poilievre is all out there. It's like, do this for a change and do that for a change and do this for a change. Everybody this for a change. And it's like, change. Somebody order change if you really want change. How about a parliament without Pierre Poilievre in it for a change?
Yeah.
It's been 20 years.
That would be nice.
You want some real change? Get rid of the dead weight. Just saying. Oh, man. All right. I'm not... I'm trying to say, do we actually need the other clips? Yeah, let's do the other clip, but let's do from 204 because I think we got Premier EB
Yes, just a second here.
right there. So this is just a little compilation of the reactions of the other leaders. I'm not sure if with Mark Carney you're going to see a little bit of a repeat there, but this will give you another perspective from Pierre because he was at another event earlier, and then Mr. Singh as well.
Heard from the Premier, and of course the federal party leaders are reacting to the events in Vancouver. CBC's Alexander Silverman is tracking all of that for us. So Alex, let's begin with NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, who spoke in Penticton, BC, but also really important to note, he was at the festival last night and during the day, so really hitting home for him quite close. Talk to us about what we're hearing from the NDP leader.
That's right, Natasha. Jagmeet Singh, who spoke not too long ago, was clearly, visibly very emotional, clearly deeply shaken by this incident, this tragedy, describing it as a dark day, saying it's heartbreaking that in a moment at an event with so much joy, things could result in so much tragedy. Of course, an important reminder that Singh himself attended this community festival, was there. He described meeting with many families, many young people, and sharing in with the joy and the festivities, leaving just moments before all of this tragedy unfolded. Singh was speaking earlier at an event in Penticton in the BC interior, very emotional, tearing up at one point when describing the events that happened. Have a listen.
We carry forward the flame of resistance, the strength to stand tall, to protect one another, to never let hate define us. To the families, to the survivors, to everyone grieving today, we see you, we mourn with you, we stand with you, and we will not let hate win, not now, not ever.
So Jagmeet Singh was speaking at an event in the BC interior in Penticton not too long ago, but important to note that he's revised his plan for the day in wake of this tragedy, canceling much of the remainder of his schedule. The Liberal campaign as well canceled its first event this morning, along with rallies that they were initially planning to hold in Calgary and Richmond, BC. So the party's remaining events expected to look much different in tone than initially planned.
Let's talk about some of the other leaders. What are they saying today?
So I'll start with Liberal leader Mark Carney, who stepped away from the campaign trail as Liberal leader to address this tragedy in his capacity as Prime Minister, address Canadians across the country, and in particular, the Filipino-Canadian community. Carney says he was briefed late overnight by many of his colleagues, National Security Advisor, Public Safety Minister as well, and says they do not believe at this point that there's an active threat to Canadians. Carney also going on to say that he's been in touch with the BC Premier's office and Vancouver Mayor's office and plans to speak with them both later today and continue to stay in touch with local law enforcement. Carney also reaching out to the Filipino community, offering his condolences and saying he stands with them during this difficult time. Have a listen to some of his comments.
The strength and the resilience of the Filipino-Canadian community is exemplified by the Tagalog term, bayan niyan. It captures the Filipino spirit of community, of cooperation and unity to achieve a common goal. And it's this spirit upon which we must draw in this incredibly difficult time. We will comfort the grieving. We will care for each other. We will unite in common purpose.
So in light of this tragedy, Carney's campaign will now hold smaller events to thank supporters in Saskatoon and Edmonton, like I mentioned, canceling those larger rallies that were scheduled for later. We're also hearing from Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, who visited a Filipino church in Toronto earlier today to take some time to mourn with the community and offer his condolences. Have a listen.
I know many of you are shocked, heartbroken and saddened by this senseless act of violence and by the innocent and treasured lives that have been lost. And Anna and I just wanted you all to know that our hearts are with you today.
Poilievre offering a message of solace and solidarity with the Canadian Filipino community. His campaign has a very different change in tone today, different from the rallies that we've seen in recent days as he's been forced to pivot and adapt to these events. We saw one of the leaders' events earlier today in Ontario at a moment of silence at the beginning as the final day of this campaign now very much up in the air, lots of schedule changes happening, and what these events look like has been very different so far, as all of the parties, Natasha, are really forced to adapt to a shift in tone with this somber mood today in face of this horrific tragedy. Natasha?
CBC's Alexander Silberman reporting from Ottawa. Thank you, Alex.
All right. So again, getting a sense of how the leaders are handling it. So as mentioned, lots of changes of events. Mr. Singh had one event in Penticton, then it canceled the rest of his events for the day. There were some changes on the Liberal campaign. Some events canceled, other ones made smaller. Same thing on the Conservative side. The Liberals didn't have a big closing rally from what I can see. It seemed that there was an evening vigil of some kind to which the Prime Minister went. There's some images on CPAC. The Prime Minister did not grab the microphone, was just there in attendance that evening. Mr. Poilievre had events, did have an event in the evening that was more traditional rally style, but not in a big hall or anything from what I can tell. So there you go. The Governor General issued a statement of condolence for the victims and their loved ones and gratitude for first responders. Mayor Ken Sims of Vancouver stated, "I'll endeavor to bring everyone to the table to tackle this, the provincial government, the federal government, because Vancouver can't wait." He also promised a full review of events for security for events such as Lapu Lapu Day and other civic events.
I'm just surprised that they didn't, oftentimes when there's a street event here in Canada's capital of Ottawa, they put up barricades to block the roads for vehicles if there's a street or a block party. So I don't know why that wasn't done in this instance. Maybe wasn't in the budget. Maybe it wasn't a consideration. Maybe the planners didn't consider this. I don't know. But like I said, in this city, because it's the capital city, because threats have come down before, there's always that precaution. There are barricades that prevent vehicles from driving through.
Right.
Now, I don't know if this is an Ottawa thing and not in the rest of the country. I would have thought everywhere in the country that they would do that as a precautionary measure. And you don't even have to put up big cement barricades. They have these portable, gigantic steel ones that get anchored and don't move. They stop vehicles. Or as we've seen here in Ottawa, what they did during Canada Day a few years ago in 2022 was blocking off the streets with giant dump trucks full of sand. You could not get past them. Like it's several tons of weight blocking it. You'd need a tank, maybe, and even then,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why the okay. Oh, so according to PNC Bio here, he says the police lifted the barricade to let the guy drive through, as many vehicles did exactly that throughout the day.
Mhm.
Yeesh. So there were barricades, but they lifted them. Ouch.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Oh, man.
that's kind of a sad state of affairs.
Yeah. I mean, I know that it happens like in Montreal for the village for Pride during the
Mhm.
summer. Well, not Pride, just for the whole summer. It becomes
Yes,
pedestrian
they
walkway, and
block
they
off
have
several
those,
streets.
I guess, but they have these things that can like be moved and whatnot to let the
Yes.
delivery trucks in and whatnot when they need to come through. So they're fixed, but they can be moved in a certain way to allow things in.
Allow vehicles.
Yeah.
Well, then of course. So let me just. I want to show this clip. So this is never missing an opportunity to politic on somebody else's tragedy.
Okay.
The Conservative Party's under fire for this.
The tragedy in Vancouver. But as Turi Isri reports, the Conservatives are not responding to questions about the post.
Colleen, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's last rally in the Greater Toronto area went ahead as scheduled, but it began on a somber tone.
I don't know what's going
Before
on in this
Poilievre
video.
took the stage, the crowd paused and remembered the victims of the Vancouver
The audio seems to be way out of sync on this. My apologies.
attack.
If we can have a moment of silence.
Tone. Before Poilievre took the stage, the crowd paused and remembered the victims of the Vancouver attack.
If we can have a moment of silence.
The Conservative leader began his address by offering condolences.
All of our hearts and prayers are today with Canada's brilliant and proud Filipino community who've lost so much. I ask you to say a little prayer.
Poilievre paid a visit to a Filipino church in Mississauga, meeting with the pastor and parishioners.
I don't want to cry.
Less than 24 hours after the tragedy, the Conservative Party reposted this video. The caption below read, "Violent crime is on the rise in Canada." What happened in Vancouver last night is a reminder of that. Police said the suspect was known to them. How are we allowing these people to roam freely? The party shared the post despite the many unknowns. Investigators have only said the suspect had a significant history of interactions with police related to mental health issues. The caption was later changed and the reference to the Vancouver attack removed.
After 10 long years of Liberal failure,
Global News asked if the post politicized the attack, but a spokesperson did not answer that question. The Conservatives who have campaigned to crack down on violent crime put out this ad on Sunday.
Crime is out of control. It isn't an accident. It didn't just happen.
It paints a bleak picture if Mark Carney wins.
The next Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Poilievre!
In the final sprint, Poilievre focused his attention on southern Ontario. Poilievre ends the campaign in his Ottawa riding before Canadian voters ultimately decide if he's the change they want. Colleen?
Turi Isri.
Never miss an opportunity to take advantage of a tragedy to use it to your own events, to further your own cause. This is what this party has been doing for the last several years.
Yeah.
This is not new. Oh, we made a mistake. You never should have done it in the first place. You see, but they do it intentionally because they know the damage is done. Right? Oh, we made a mistake. Terribly sorry. Doesn't matter. What you did is done.
They don't
Cow is
wait.
out of the barn.
Yeah. They don't wait till the details.
No.
It's the same thing with that car accident in Buffalo.
Yeah. Yeah. Use it to stir up emotions in people without having any facts.
Yep. And even
you
though
want this man to lead the country?
Yeah. And even though they changed the caption, they still released the ad though, right? Crime. Ah.
Well, this comment here from James is dead bang on. Mental health issues are not criminal. You can't just imprison someone for having legit mental health issues. And they were like, we're allowing these people to roam the streets freely? Yeah. because we have this thing in this country called freedom and due process. And just because you have a mental health issue doesn't mean you should be in prison. I have several mental health issues. Now, I've never harmed anybody in that manner, but that's me. I can't speak for anybody but myself.
So,
But trying to say he should be in jail, excuse me, we're going to lock up people because of mental health issues?
and again, I think if I remember correctly, statistically, people with mental health issues are more likely to be the victims of a crime than a perpetrator of a crime.
Correct.
So yeah, Chapalia was doing that, and of course, when that I heard the news, that my first thing was, oh my god, I shudder to think.
Yeah,
Some people might use this. He didn't do as much as I thought he would, to be totally honest. But still went out there.
Still did it.
Still
I've
went
got
out
the
there.
tweet here. I'll put the tweet up and show the accompanying video. I'll have to blow this up a bit so you can read it. A decade of liberals brought crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder to our once safe communities. On Monday, you can put an end to it all by ending radical liberal drug policies, bringing life sentences for fentanyl kingpins, and bringing our loved ones home drug-free. But only if you vote for change, vote conservative. Okay, before we get into his statement of crime is on the rise.
The child died from an overdose of fentanyl.
This whole video could literally just be clips from the news. This wasn't an accident. This is because of choices made by the liberals. Their radical drug agenda is killing people and destroying your community. We both know what happens if Mark Carney wins, if the liberals get 4 more years. More drugs, more homelessness, more death, and more crime. We cannot let this happen. This Monday, this is it.
You notice Pierre's not that ad either.
No, he's not. So here's the thing that troubles me with that ad. To begin with, it's talking about municipal and provincial matters. Policing is done at the municipal level. Drug rehabilitation is done at the provincial level. So him saying he's going to fix this, total horseshit. He doesn't have the jurisdictional powers to do it unless he pulls the notwithstanding clause and just says, this is what I'm doing, and starts to throw everybody in prison who has a mental health issue. So he's starting off with a lie. An absolutely despicable human being. Never willing to not exploit a tragedy for his own gain. This is who he is. It's who he's always been. He doesn't care about you. He cares about himself. What he can get, the power he can wield, and how he can hammer it home on top of you. Just a despicable person.
Yeah. So again, we're comparing the leaders. So while Pierre Poilievre and his team had people doing that, Mark Carney had the advantage of being in BC to campaign. So was able to be with the people. But this is what he was doing. All right. And then, Mr. Grizzly, there's also this. So for those who are listening at home who didn't get much out of that, Mark Carney himself went into the Filipino community and to a church in BC, laid some flowers, lit some candles, and stayed for service. He also laid flowers at another place outside, sort of a makeshift shrine at the site where the events occurred. And then said that later that evening was with the community again, and during the day was with the community at another instance here, which we will show. And you might recognize the lady in the bottom left because she was the same lady at the left when Premier Eby was speaking earlier. Bottom right, I mean, sorry.
My chains are gone. I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns. Unending love, amazing grace, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
I hope we're seeing the difference here. So that lady that he was hugging, first lady that he hugged, that was standing next to him and crying, and noticed that, when it was over, it's not like he didn't say words, he didn't, rush out, was looking, and then when she turned back around his way, made a point to reach out to her, because if you noticed earlier in the video, he had noticed her. He had looked her way. The lady in question is Mabel Elmore. She's a Canadian politician. She represents Vancouver, Kensington in the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia. So this is probably her district. So again, very close to these people.
Well, I wanted to address the statement that we heard from Pierre Poilievre in that his tweet in that little video, and let's have a look at this graph here quickly. This graph that just sort of puts into perspective what he's saying, how, and it's like not true. This is 1986, 1991.
We don't know what that's a graph of, Mr. Grizzly.
It's police reported crime rates Canada 1962 to 2023, rate per 100,000 population. 1991 was when total crime was up. And we've had a spike in 2019, and it dipped and it's gone back up a little bit, but violent crime is basically flatlined.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So where he's getting these numbers, I don't know. I think he's just making them up because it suits his narrative.
So we saw what the two leaders were doing on the day,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think I know who I would want to. I would prefer to lead me.
Oh yeah.
Those two. One person understood the assignment and one person passed it. I mean, more than one person understood the assignment. Between them two, Mr. Singh clearly passed the assignment as well. But yeah, he's a banker who can actually show compassion. It's not fitting the stereotype of what we think of when we think of bankers, right?
We can do a compare and contrast here. I have the clip that you sent me.
Mm-hmm.
Catch and release hug-a-thug laws that turn the same repeat offenders loose again and again on our streets. C-75 requires the judges release the accused at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions, meaning that the same 40 offenders in Vancouver had to be arrested 6,000 times. That means once every 2 days, each of these guys was arrested. They basically have to be doing crime all day, every day, to get arrested every 2 days. It's insane. And then there's house arrest, C5. You can be a career car thief, having stolen 100 cars, and you get your sentence in your living room, watching Netflix or playing Grand Theft Auto.
Okay.
That was his only mention of Vancouver during his evening speech.
And once again, he fails to address why those people are committing those crimes.
Mm-hmm.
These are petty crimes, for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Done so because these are desperate people who are living in poverty and probably suffering from addiction problems, which drives them to commit more crimes to feed their addiction. And instead of creating an environment where we can help these people, he wants to lock them up and throw away the key. As we have known, does not work. Never has. Are there some people that need to remain behind bars for the rest of their lives? Yes. Yes. And they
do.
are. And they do. Do some people get out that we don't want out? Yeah, but if the parole board sees it fit.
Yes. Life 25 years, remember, it's 25 years before you get a parole hearing.
Correct.
Not 25 years and 1 second and they let you out.
No. You get your parole hearing after 25 years. There is the faint hope clause as well.
Yeah.
Some people are redeemed after 25 years. Some people are not. Robert Pickton will never get out of prison. Paul Bernardo will never get out of prison. It's...
I know. So, yeah. So, Pierre still had his end rally. The rah-rah had his big bring it home pitch at the end. That was his only mention of Vancouver. He was in Southern Ontario for the end of his campaign. So, I guess, loin des yeux, loin du cœur, as the expression goes in French, far from the eyes, far from the heart.
I just realized the time. I got to go.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, shit, I got to go. So thanks for coming out, folks. I have to run. We will, of course, be back at 6:30 this evening. I will be joining for portions. I won't be there for the whole evening because I know you're probably going to do a marathon, and I'm not capable of that. There is also an Ottawa Senators hockey game tonight that I desperately want to watch. So at least I think it's tonight. I got to check this.
I think there was a day off. No, I think I think they have a day off.
Is it? Okay, let me just...
I'm not mistaken. I remember reading something in the news about that. Somebody said, thank goodness there's a day off. Because tonight, it's just Florida versus Tampa and Dallas versus Colorado.
Yeah, it's tomorrow.
So it's like the NHL knew.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so...
Okay, let's put
either way.
If the NHL can manage not to schedule a Canadian team during the playoffs on an election night, how could the debate commission not schedule a debate?
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
Only
all right.
Canada,
Well,
right?
I'm gonna take off because I have to get to things, and I will see you all tomorrow. Have yourselves I'll see you tonight. Actually, I'll be on tonight for a bit. I don't know how long I can participate for. There are other things I need to do, like at 9:00 I have a scheduled ASMR, but we'll see. We'll figure things out. Anyway, y'all take care. I will see you later.
I thought Mr. Grizzly was going to break into a chorus of "Have yourself a merry little election." Oh, kids and cubs. So yeah, well, we have two people. I sorry, kids and cubs. For those who are listening at home, I just I just shifted from production mode to the chat mode to see what the kids were saying here, and somebody said, Kit James said something, and somebody else just turned around and goes, "I am not telling him that." uh, let's just say it was a very cheeky comment. And if you want to know what it's about, you're going to have to watch the show. Oh, man. I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh, geez. Yeah. So, yeah. Tragedy. Definitely tempering the events of the day. No big finish, no big sprint to the final line. One of the leaders clearly making it obvious that he's still putting himself first. Yeah, uh, you can't ask a scorpion not to sting, I guess. But yeah. Oh well, Pierre's gonna Pierre, right? The other thing that happened over the past few days is that Jagmeet Singh did on Saturday make mention of the fact that he had been threatened at some point. This is according to the Canadian Press by David Baxter. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh said Saturday that he considered stepping down after being told about a credible threat to his life in December 2023. Singh made the revelation to reporters in a campaign stop in London, Ontario, as he is fighting for his political life ahead of Monday's final vote. Singh said the RCMP warned him about the threat and put him and his family under heavy protection in late 2023 and early 2024. He said thinking about what that threat could mean for his family was unnerving. Quote, "When I got that threat, I was floored," he said. "When I started thinking about what it meant for me and my family, that I was the target of a real threat to my life, I had the chills." At this time, his wife, Gurkiran Kaur Sidhu, was pregnant with their second daughter. His oldest daughter was then almost 2 years old. "For the first number of days, I just stayed in the basement because they advised me to stay away from windows," he said. "It was a pretty serious thing." Singh said he had some very, quote, tough talks with his wife about whether or not to remain at the party helm, noting the reason for the threats was his position, quote, as a prominent elected official. The NDP leader said he ultimately decided to stay on because he had more he wanted to do, including finalizing the National Dental Care Program the party pushed the Liberals to implement. Singh said the RCMP did not say where the threats to his life came from, but, quote, the implication was they originated from a foreign government. Singh was one of the multiple MPs and cabinet ministers given RCMP protection in recent years. Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly has had constant protection for more than a year. Former Emergency Preparedness Minister Harjit Sajjan had an RCMP details for several months in 2023-2024, as did Conservative Deputy Leader Melissa Lantsman. None of them, including Singh, would ever discuss the threats, though the uptick in security for those four coincided with rising threats in Canada following both the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel and the ensuing war in Gaza, as well as Canada's accusations against Indian state agents in relation to the murder of a Canadian Sikh leader. Singh was asked about the provocative detail around him at the time, but he would not discuss it. His spokeswoman told the Canadian press in 2024 that the party was following, quote, the recommendations that are provided to us. Singh said he is sharing the story now after hearing from regular people on the campaign trail who are worried about foreign interference and threats in their own lives. Quote, over the course of this campaign, some really personal things have come up and stories have come up. Ideas of how everyday folks are targeted and everyday folks who are faced with a lot of challenges and meeting with different community groups that came up again and again, Singh said. I felt like it was important, after a lot of persuasion, that this might highlight how serious and dangerous foreign interference is for people. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau rose in the House of Commons on September 19th, 2023, and accused the Indian government of being involved in the murder of a Sikh activist, Hardeep Singh Nijjar. He was shot while sitting in his truck in the parking lot of his local Gurdwara in Surrey, British Columbia on June 18th, 2023. Nijjar was a key organizer of unofficial referendums for independent Sikh state in India and was regarded by India's government as a terrorist. 3 Indian nationals, all in their 20s, are charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. When Singh visited a Gurdwara in Saskatoon on April 9th to meet with members of the local Sikh community, he was asked several questions about foreign interference. Quote, it was something I was very reluctant to do in the past, that I thought maybe this would be an opportunity with the platform I have to share how serious this is, Singh said. Permanent RCMP protection is provided for the Prime Minister and the Governor General, while other party leaders, ministers, and MPs can receive it as needed. The cost to protect MPs, not including the Prime Minister, has risen significantly in the last few years. Pat McDonnell, the Sergeant at Arms at the House of Commons, told a House committee in May 2024 that harassment of MPs had risen as much as 800% in the last 5 years. Most of it, he said, comes online, but it also takes place in person. Singh is making the revelation with 2 days left in the federal election. His party is trailing badly in most polls and is at risk of losing official party status after Monday's vote. So, yes, Mr. Singh did go public with that. Of course, that led to several people asking if he might have had ulterior motives in making that statement. For example, perhaps an appeal to sympathy of some kind to get some votes. Now, I believe, if I am not mistaken, that this admission by Mr. Singh that there actually had been a threat on his life came before the news of what happened in Vancouver. So I do not think that these two elements are related. But here for you, Kids and Cubs, he was at a Unifor event in Windsor when he was asked specifically about this. And this was his answer to the question at that time.
And but they'll also ask questions about why you're revealing this at this particular time. What do you want to say to people who see, this as an appeal for votes?
Well, I mean, I told folks again and again, I didn't want to share what happened to me. I was worried that I didn't want it to be about me. And over the course of this campaign, traveling across the country, I've been hearing more and more stories, private conversations with people telling me about what they've gone through and the ongoing threats that continue to happen for Canadians around foreign interference. And some folks had seen some information or heard some things around potentially me being a target in the past, and that I was reluctant to talk about it. And a lot of folks encouraged me, well, you've got this platform, and in this campaign, you can talk about what happened to you, because if it could happen to you and you're an elected official at such a high platform and at such a high position, what about us? Ordinary folks. It happens to us all the time, and we have no protection, and we're just out here dealing with it. So I was encouraged by hearing those voices and folks that I met across kind of throughout the course of this campaign to use my platform to talk about it, just as a way to highlight, if it could happen to me, imagine how scary it is for everyday people.
So there you go, Kits and Cubs. That was his answer to whether or not he was doing it for legitimate reasons or because he was seeking sympathy in some kind of way. And so directly from Mr. Singh, you get the answer to that question. All right. Now, we are getting close I mean, today's the day we vote, right? So, first of all, let's make sure, if you have not voted yet, that you do vote, that you do bring people with you, all the stuff that I usually say. You know, it's stuff that's important to do more than ever. This particular election, it is very consequential. Not only are we trying to hopefully get out of this election without having a conservative leader that would that proudly seeks to be the first prime minister in Canadian history to use the notwithstanding clause to remove rights away from citizens. Um, but we also have an existential threat south of us. And it would seem that we need to start making some pretty big moves to reorganize ourselves for the future to which we aspire, because the foundations on which we thought our future was going to be built do not seem to be as stable as we once thought they were. They might not be solid enough on which to build the future to which we aspire. Um, so there's a lot of going on. And with the existential threat, of course, good turnout, and indeed a strong mandate for whomever wins that comes from the people that they can point to when they're negotiating on our behalf is definitely something that would be an asset to whomever is selected as the government of the day going forward. So, voter turnout is particularly important this time around. So, I hope that Canadians, I will have a lot to be proud of when I am reporting back on turnout numbers later on tonight and tomorrow when we do our show. There's a couple of little bit more news here going on. There's a little bit of stuff being published still about the battle between what seems to be Doug Ford's conservatives and Pierre Poilievre's conservatives here. And this is by Barbara Patricino from iPolitics. And it says, Ford Poilievre rift on full display as federal race upended by strategic leaks. So that's all the polling information that's been going on here. When they were talking, and this article goes a little bit into the visit into Nova Scotia with Tim Houston. It says the bad blood has also spilled across Ontario's borders, with media reports suggesting that Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston, a close ally of Ford, who endorsed him in the provincial election earlier this year, is on bad terms with the Poilievre camp. It apparently came to head during Poilievre's Thursday's campaign stop in Trenton, a small community nearly a 2-hour drive from Halifax. Houston wasn't present at the event held in the riding of Central Nova, historically a conservative stronghold, once held by major political figures like Brian Mulroney and Peter MacKay, but that has been held by former Liberal cabinet minister Sean Fraser since 2015. After the no-show, Jenny Byrne, Poilievre's campaign manager, texted Houston's team angrily, saying this was a, quote, insult, and warning she wouldn't forget it, according to reporting by the Globe and Mail. Some Ontario PC insiders believe Ford's team may be behind at least some of the leaks to the media, quietly seeding discontent. Quote, I don't know if it's Ford himself, the source said, but yeah, it seems like it's on purpose, strategic. While Ford publicly maintains he will work with whoever's in power in Ottawa, insiders suggest he may privately find it easier to work with the federal Liberals under Mark Carney, who Ford has praised as, quote, an extremely astute business mind. Of course, in public, the two camps deny any tension. Ford continues to insist he's willing to work with anyone, but insiders say there's some strong dislike between the two sides. At the heart of this divide is a network of personalities with deep histories and lingering resentments, particularly between Ford's inner circle and Byrne. Quote, Jenny was Ford's principal secretary when he first became premier, the source explained. There was a civil war in his office. She lost. She got thrown out and had to lick her wounds in Ottawa. So that's when Mr. Grizzly comments a lot about how Doug Ford somewhere along the way made a shift. That probably is part of the shift once she was no longer the principal secretary. Doug Ford became a little less about using the notwithstanding clause preemptively and, admitting mistakes now and then. That departure, sources say, set off a chain of political retaliation and score settling that continues to shape federal-provincial dynamics to this day. After Byrne was ousted, she retreated from Ontario politics and later founded her consulting firm, Jenny Byrne and Associates. While critics say she helped play a role in the takedown of then federal Conservative leader Erin O'Toole, who was viewed as too moderate by Poilievre-aligned hardliners, that was Byrne's return to Ottawa and her rise back into the party's inner circle. According to a Conservative source, Byrne has built a reputation for ruthless political discipline. Quote, "She's like the Conservative version of Katie Telford," they said, referencing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's longtime chief of staff. Quote, "If you cross her, she will make it her job to screw things up for you." And it was on full display in Nova Scotia, according to a Tory source who confirmed that Byrne had reached out to Houston's team. Quote, "The stories about Jenny reaching out to his team after that, 100% true," the source confirmed. "She makes those calls." The animosity was also on full display in the lead up to the federal campaign, when Poilievre's camp made it clear that anyone who worked on a Ford campaign need not apply in Ottawa. Quote, "The message from Jenny was, quote, if you're associated with Doug Ford, you are not welcome here," a source said. There were literally staffers being told, "If you help Doug, don't ever show your face here," they added. Sources say that directive left Ford and his team reeling and perhaps retaliating. And so far, it looks like the PCs may have the last laugh. So there you go. More about the Civil War out in the press. That's definitely press you do not want circulating in the final days, kids and cubs. So before we go today, wanted to take a moment to read a couple of things and put a couple of things into the record, because there's a lot of groups that didn't get a lot of attention in this election. For those who are wondering about different votes, there hasn't been a lot of talk about expat Canadians, for example, but greater than 800,000 Canadians live in the United States. In 2021, only 27,000 Canadians who lived abroad cast votes. But this year, over 90,000 kits have been ordered and sent, according to Elections Canada. So maybe expat Canadians are getting more in the game. If you happen to be rainbow and you haven't heard a lot of talk about yourself during this election, there hasn't been a lot of talk. So you haven't been imagining it. According to Dale Smith here, he asks, where are the gays in the federal party platforms? And this is from Extra Magazine. The major political parties' platforms were all released extremely late in this election cycle, having apparently decided to wait until after the debates were over, possibly for fear of being grilled on the details of their plans on camera, which is what happened in the last election cycle. To make it worse, advance voting had already begun, with record turnout, one might add, when the Liberals and NDP released their platforms and the associated costing, by which point at least 2 million Canadians had already voted before even having had a chance to read it. The Conservatives didn't release their own, quote, costed platform, and I use the term very loosely, until after advanced voting had closed, which feels increasingly cynical about the nature of electoral politics. Platforms are important because they send strong signals about just how coherent a party's beliefs are when stacked together. That's the point we made on the show a couple of days ago. The NDP wasn't even really much of a platform, given that Jagmeet Singh decided to finally give up the pretense that he was ever going to be prime minister, and instead decided to run on a series of, quote, commitments that he was going to try and hold the government to. This approach optimistically counts on the NDP being able to hold the balance of power in the next parliament, when in reality, they may not even achieve official party status. Quote, or official party status indefinite in parentheses here. A party that has fewer than 12 MPs doesn't have enough to provide representation on committees, and as a result, they don't get the same parliamentary resources. Singh has been running a defensive campaign in ridings that the party already holds, pleading with voters to save the seats of their incumbents. Never mind that more than a quarter of the caucus had decided that they weren't going to run again, and insisted that they were needed to hold the Liberals to account. Their list of commitments is pretty silent on queer and trans issues, consisting of a single line under the heading of, quote, protecting what makes us Canadian, saying, quote, we would take new steps to protect diversity in Canada, including supporting 2S LGBTQI+ communities who are increasingly subjected to hate and violence. It doesn't help that much of their platform intrudes into areas of provincial jurisdiction, particularly around healthcare and promising national rent control, and tries to hand-wave away that particular problem. But that too has become par for the course for the federal NDP. The Conservatives' platform was, in short, a mess of incoherence, misleading claims about what the Liberals have done over 10 years, and incredibly bad math that includes counting on revenues from unrealistic growth projections that they think will happen if they just cut taxes and deregulate. Never mind that trickle-down economics has been disproven time and time again. There are no mentions of queer people in the document, but there is an oblique reference to trans women. Under the, quote, Restore Public Safety heading, Poilievre promises to defend women's safety by repealing Commissioner's Directive 100, which allows male offenders to be housed in women's prisons and ensure that women's spaces and services remain protected in federal institutions and policy. Poilievre has taken cues from Donald Trump's rhetoric in the States that attacking trans rights is seen as a political winner for the voters he is looking to attract, and is part of a broader pattern of LGBTQ2S plus scapegoating that authoritarian regimes engage in. It's also worth noting that while on the campaign trail, Poilievre has reiterated his promise to invoke the notwithstanding clause to override a Supreme Court of Canada decision to strike down consecutive life sentences for mass murderers, though the document itself doesn't spell this out. This is likely a particular test case because it was likely never really about mass murderers who won't be released in any case. It has been about using them as an excuse to weaken the charter rights. Because as soon as it becomes acceptable to use the clause to attack one set of charter rights, it is easier for the attack on the next set of rights, whether that is the rights of trans women or anyone else. Or like Mr. Carney said, it's not about what you want to use it on now, it's about what's going to be used on next. It should also be noted that while Poilievre promised in the platform not to legislate on abortion, he has voted in favor of bills that would grant rights to fetuses, which has been a backdoor attempt at anti-abortion legislation. It was also noted by several media outlets that Poilievre toned down the promise to fight, quote, woke ideology in the English language platform, whereas it was in his Quebec-specific party platform a couple of weeks ago, only for him to reinsert it afterwards, claiming it was a, quote, publishing oversight. As for the Liberals, theirs was the only platform that did have some mention of queer and trans issues. Like the NDP, Mark Carney used the specter of rising hate to promise to maintain specific security funds for pride organizations to be distributed by Fierté Canada Pride, which the government rolled out in June of 2023. The party also pledges to make the 2S LGBTQI plus community capacity fund permanent, or as permanent as any government program can be, given its importance to protect rights and advance equality. There is also a promise to establish a new in vitro fertilization program that would provide up to $20,000 for a single standard cycle of IVF treatment, making it more affordable, particularly for LGBTQ2S plus Canadians who are disproportionately affected. That would work, however, would, however, need to be done in coordination with provinces, given that they deliver healthcare. On an international level, the Liberals are promising additional funding for the LGBTQI plus International Assistance Program, which aims to, quote, support for LGBTQI plus individuals facing persecution abroad, promote global equality, and partner with international organizations. This is part of Carney's pledge to have Canada take more of a global leadership position as the US steps back. But then again, Canadian governments have been promising global leadership for decades and never actually delivering, so take that with a shaker's worth of salt. That said, there is still no promise to create a special envoy for LGBTQ2S plus human rights as civil society groups and former cabinet ministers have been demanding. The platform also promises to expand the Rainbow Refugee Assistance Partnership. This is an important election for queer and trans people in Canada, given that our neighbors to the south can no longer be credibly called a full democracy, and the influence of their authoritarian government is already being felt in this country. We need to ensure that we have a government in place that can resist these impulses rather than give in to them for electoral gain. And while the polls are looking good for Carney's Liberals so far, there is no room to be complacent. So, for those who were wondering a little bit about that, there you go. You can get a little bit of overview of what's in each party's platform if you happen to be Rainbow. With regard to the Jewish community, Kits and Cubs, they have been treated like a monolith a bit during this election, a lot from the Conservatives' perspective when we're talking about Israel and Gaza. The Conservatives seem to be presenting themselves as the party for Jewish people. And because they're the only ones that are 100% full in, referring to, I would put, full in with what the Israeli government's objectives appear to be there. But this article passed by, and I thought it was interesting. It's an opinion piece. It's written, "I'm a Jewish Canadian and I won't be voting for Pierre Poilievre." This is by John Allen, a former Canadian ambassador to Israel and Spain, currently a senior fellow at the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the University of Toronto. Commentators in the mainstream media have suggested that most Jews voting for the Conservatives under Pierre Poilievre are doing so largely on the basis of the party's policies on anti-Semitism and Israel. The CBC's flagship news program, The National, carried perhaps the definitive take on this theme earlier this week. Such commentary seems to suggest that the Jewish vote in Canada is monolithic and governed largely, if not totally, by issues that affect only Jews, anti-Semitism and Canada's stance on the current Israeli government, rather than by issues of concern to Canadians as a whole, such as healthcare, tariffs, US President Donald Trump, crime, and the state of our military. I am well aware that incidents of anti-Semitism have increased significantly since October 7th, 2023, when the war in Gaza began. I know that some Jewish students at Canadian universities have felt fearful during protests on campus. I believe it is important that local communities, university administrations, and police respond effectively to these concerns and to the concerns of Jews more generally. At the same time, we should remember that anti-Islamic and anti-Palestinian hate crimes and hate speech have also increased during this period. We should remember, too, that Palestinians here have long felt underrepresented by Canadian media and by our political classes, although that is hopefully the case today. I and most Jews in Canada fully support Israel's right to exist and to defend itself against attacks of the kind it experienced on October 7th, and has since from Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, and Iran. But I and many other progressive Jews in Canada are capable of holding in our minds and hearts the suffering that innocents in both Israel and Gaza have endured. We are concerned about anti-Semitism, certainly, but some of us believe that it will decline once the war ends. We support, as do 70% of Israelis, a ceasefire in Gaza to allow for the release of the remaining hostages. Progressive Jews also support the delivery of humanitarian assistance to innocent Palestinians in Gaza, assistance that is currently being withheld by the Israeli government, and an end to the death and destruction there. Continued funding for UNRWA, the main United Nations agency responsible for distributing food, water, and medicine to Gazans, does not amount to support for terrorism in the view of many Jews in Canada, despite what some conservative candidates would have you believe. And calling for a ceasefire in Gaza is neither anti-Israel nor anti-Semitic, as some conservative campaign literature suggests. Many progressive Jews believe that our foreign minister should not be characterized as anti-Israel for having joined with all other G7 ministers in calling for an end to the fighting in Gaza and for a clear plan to deal with the aftermath. I have been in contact with progressive Jews across the country, including those who actively support organizations such as J Space Canada, the New Israel Fund of Canada, and Canadian Friends of Peace Now. They categorically reject many of Poilievre's policies on crime, the CBC, tax cuts, the public service, and especially Israel-Palestine. The Canadian political and media establishment has finally moved on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but on him only. Organizations such as the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs still won't criticize Israel itself. To do so, they say, would be to foster anti-Semitism, which they argue is at levels not seen since the 1930s. This fails to account for those Jewish and non-Jewish progressives, including legitimate campus protesters, who are critical of the war and the Israeli government, yet are not anti-Semitic. Indeed, many of these progressives are not even anti-Zionist or anti-Israel per se. A few organizations claim to represent all Jews in Canada. They do not. As with Canadian Ukrainians, Canadian Sikhs, or Canadian Sri Lankans, the Canadian Jewish community holds a multiplicity of views, and the mainstream media ought to be aware of that. So there you go. It's another voice that we haven't heard that much of a little in this election. So there, just wanted to make sure that I presented some of that to you, kids and cubs. Another voice we have not heard a lot from during this election is the voice of Canadians with disabilities. there's been very little attention to them. We would have thought at some point during the election, with the move made by the Alberta government to claw back payments from the Canada Disability Benefit, that the issue would have gotten at least today on the national scene. But unfortunately, it has not. So there was a little clip from the CBC over the course of the weekend with regards to that which Canadians with disabilities have been saying on the campaign. And essentially, it's that, well, they feel that they've been rather forgotten, essentially. So let's hear what this report has to say.
A lot of you have been asking us, what will the parties do for people with disabilities? So I'm going to break it down. But first, it's important to understand the concerns more than 8 million people with disabilities and their caregivers are facing. For one, they say their cost of living is increasing, but financial support isn't keeping up, and accessibility is an ongoing issue.
It's very frustrating to be told, no, you could no longer work anymore, but we're only going to give you this amount of money to live on, which is barely enough. We need affordable housing. They're not making them accessible. So I can't win. It's like we don't have value.
I don't receive nothing from my taxes. I was qualified right away. And for some reason, when I do my taxes at the end of the year, I owe nil and receive nil. The way I'm treated by our government, it breaks my heart.
They really are missing that it is a crisis. It is a private struggle for many families as they age supporting adults. So as a caregiver, that piece, I feel like that's been missed terribly.
Now, the federal government did introduce the Canada Disability Benefit in 2024. It gives some people with disabilities up to $2,400 a year. But one disability advocate I spoke to said it's nowhere near enough to make ends meet.
The new Canada Disability Benefit is so paltry, is not going to lift the vast majority of impoverished people with disabilities out of poverty at all.
So what are the parties promising in this election? Let's start with the Green Party, who were first to release their platform. The Greens say they will fully fund and fix the Canada Disability Benefit to lift all people with disabilities out of poverty. They say they'll ensure automatic enrollment for those already receiving provincial, territorial, or federal programs. They also promise to reform the disability tax credit, which includes simplified eligibility rules and expanding the list of healthcare providers. Next, the NDP. The party says it will double the Canada Disability Benefit by providing people with an extra $2,400 a year. Next, the Liberal Party. They're promising to review and reform the process to apply for the disability tax credit. They say they'll also consider expanding the eligibility criteria. The party says it will also develop a disability justice framework to address long-standing inequities, biases, and systemic discrimination. And the last party to release their platform, the Conservatives. The party promises to streamline the disability tax credit and make access automatic for related benefits. And they promise to make the caregiver tax credit refundable. The Conservatives also say they will fund 1,000 autism support worker training spots annually and double the reach of the Ready, Willing, and Able program to help Canadians with autism and intellectual disabilities find and keep jobs. The Bloc and the PPC haven't mentioned any specific policies for people with disabilities to date. So will these policies be enough?
Not even close. Not even close. And it makes me feel forgotten by every party.
There needs to be more thought put into the continuum of the person with the disability so that they have a potential to excel as independently as they can. And that involves investing in those children. So interventions, therapies, clinical help, all of those things need to be much more in place.
If they want people like me to work, I think they should be more strong with programs, making companies hire more people like us that are on disability to go to work.
Leprovsky is asking parties to make the Accessible Canada Pledge. This will speed up the implementation of the Accessible Canada Act, which he says would tackle a lot of the barriers faced by people with disabilities. Right now, he says only the Green Party has made that commitment.
That law requires the federal government to lead Canada to become accessible by 2040. But after 6 years on the books, it's barely made a dent in the barriers we face and hasn't materially changed our lives at all.
I'm the election producer for the Ask CBC News team. If you have any other questions about the federal election, email us at ask@cbc.ca.
All right, kids and cubs. So yeah, not the best. Not definitely not enough options and everything to meet the need. Uh, definitely not. Uh, it doesn't seem like somebody's done a deep dive consultation with the community and tried to come up with an actual specific strategy. Um, and there doesn't seem to be that much there with regard to even boosting the disability benefit, even from the NDP. I'm surprised by how little there was. So, yeah, this is a subject that we're going to have to keep on, for which we're going to have to keep on beating the drums because it does not appear that people are listening and are hearing yet that which is needed, which again, we just cannot believe because. As we keep on saying on the show, and as has been made very clear to us, that disability is the great equalizer. It can happen to any of us at any point in our lives, and that we do not have uh, better systems for that and better provisions from that. It's just mind-boggling to me because, like I said, this is something that all of us, no exception, might need one day. There's no magical elixir that prevents any of us from being disabled. You'd think that we would, be making sure that should ever that happen to us one day, that the supports are there so that we can continue being full members of society. But it does not seem to be a priority unless it happens to you, which is a shame. Typical of human nature, but shame nonetheless. The last segment I wanted to bring to you, kids and cubs, has to do with Indigenous Canadians who, as well, sadly, have not seen their issues be all that prominent over the course of this election. Um, there is some talk, and that kind of stuff given to reconciliation and the things of the like. But it it doesn't have as full-throated a backing as is the case when we had Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at the helm. There is some people that have been writing about it, and the APTN has a clip about that. But I'd like to read this into the record. This is from Pratyush Dayal from CBC. It says, these Indigenous voters, so there's a little bit of something that popped up on the screen here to cover the title of the article. So I'm just going to reload it here. These Indigenous voters and experts say their concerns are on the back burner this election. Kat Pasquach says the issues and concerns of Indigenous people are never at the forefront of any campaign trail, and this federal election has been no different. It's frustrating. It absolutely is, says Pasquach, who owns Culture Shock Jewelry in Windsor. An election is a representation of so many more issues than just our relationship to the neighbors to the south. The entrepreneur, who is Cree First Nation from the James Bay region, said in every election cycle, provincial or federal, Indigenous people's concerns are sidestepped, even in her own riding of Windsor West. Pasquach said she hasn't seen anything of substance. In my riding, not seeing the inclusion of Indigenous people, Indigenous issues is apparent, not just in this federal election, but even in the provincial election that just went by, she said. The three things that are top of mind, Pasquach said, are access to affordable housing on and off reserves, food sovereignty, and the opioid crisis. Quote, we know that the cost of food has risen in urban areas, but for Indigenous people in remote areas, it's even higher, she said. As well as the opioid crisis, we need support and help just as much as we need it in urban centers. Pasquach said while the focus has been on the ongoing trade war and tariffs, there hasn't been a lot of coverage around how Indigenous rights are being affected. Quote, There's a treaty agreement between Canada and the US for Indigenous people to be able to cross freely and to be able to trade, she said. Jason Henry, the former chief of the Chippewas of Kettle and Stony Point First Nation, shares a similar view. While cross-border trade and travel are being impacted, Henry said there has been a lack of respect and acknowledgement for the Jay Treaty rights, referring to the Jay Treaty of 1794. The treaty recognized Indigenous rights to freely move and trade across the border for travel, studies, employment, retirement, and immigration, though Canada has never ratified it. Quote, Canada's implementation of counter-tariffs has affected us greatly as Indigenous people, he said. It made us afraid to cross the border and to exercise our right to free trade. That's not even a topic issue now. Henry said the fact that there's still more than 30 long-term boil water advisories when there were past elections promises to eradicate them is a real electoral issue. We're one of the wealthiest nations in the world, but yet First Nations live in third world conditions, and that is terrible, he said. Clean drinking water is a basic human right. Why is that not being talked about this election? Henry also would like to see more conversations around missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, including more federal funding and political will to bring the lost women home. Henry, who ran in the 2021 federal election for the NDP, said he is now undecided. We are not asking for charity. We are demanding justice and not lip service, true reconciliation and listening, implementing and respecting our laws and language and our leadership, he said. We are not just issues. We are nations that demand respect. Hear us. Rebecca Major is an associate professor and research chair in Northern Governance in the Indigenous Governance program at Yukon University and an adjunct at the University of Windsor in the Political Science Department. She said Indigenous issues have been very silent this election. Quote, it looks almost like a missed opportunity by being so silent on the indigenous issues in different local areas, as well as on national agenda items, she said. We have seen little sprinklings of Indigenous content in some places. In Windsor, Canada's automotive capital, Major says the national agenda of tariffs and resulting economic backlash is driving the election. Quote, it is very much a major issue at the Windsor-Essex region, but that doesn't provide reason to sidestep Indigenous content, she said. Like Henry, she would like to see party leaders address cross-border issues as ensured under the Jay Treaty. Major, who is Mi'kmaq and Métis, said fears around cross-border travel are a huge concern in southwestern Ontario communities as people want safe passage to be able to see their relatives and cultural events. Honoring the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, land rights and southern Ontario communities not having access to clean water are top of mind for her. Julie Simmons is an associate professor of political science at the University of Guelph. She says this federal election is a departure from the elections of 2015, 2019, and 2021, when issues of Indigenous rights, land claims, and reconciliation were much more prominent. In 2015, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission had issued its reports in the following elections. Discoveries of unmarked grave sites around residential schools were, quote, front and center in the news. Quote, Canadians who are not Indigenous are much more interested in issues like the cost of their own groceries and the strength of the economy, its sovereignty vis-a-vis the United States, and so on, she said. The Liberals have promised to double the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program and to seek partnerships with Indigenous communities on building Canada's economy. On Friday, Carney told the Assembly of First Nations his party was committed to implementing UNDRIP. The Conservatives have said that they would repeal BLC 69, which requires respect for Indigenous people in assessing research projects. It would also approve federal mining permits for the Ring of Fire and put a $48 million First Nations child welfare reform deal. The NDP says it would fully implement UNDRIP and recommendations from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls and support projects in Canada's north, including establishing a military base in Inuvik, Northwest Territories. Platform promises on a range of issues impacting Indigenous people can be found through CBC's platform tracker. Chadwick Cowie, who is Ojibwe from Pamitashkodiyong, or the Hiawatha First Nation, in Southern Ontario, and an assistant professor of political science at the University of Toronto, said there is also a decrease in the number of candidates who are Indigenous. The push on reconciliation has changed over the last few elections, Cowie said, from the focus on access to water in 2019 and 2011 to now the Liberals and Conservatives presenting economic reconciliation. Quote, there's a focus on this idea of economic rebuilding and reconciliation without focusing on the fact of institutional racism. Looking at the NDP, Liberal and Conservative platforms, Cowie says that there's a lot of commitment to the 4 Inuit regions, which could be due to the current tensions between the US and Canada amidst annexation threats. Cowie says Indigenous sovereignty, especially from perspectives of different First Nations, is about sustainability, coexistence, and self-sustenance. Quote, when we talk about Canadian sovereignty, we also have to understand that sovereignty has different meanings depending on where you come from. And with that, kids and cubs, let's take a little look at the piece that we have here from the APTN, which is the Aboriginal People's Television Network. And in this context, we have a gentleman who's named Cody Grote. He's an assistant professor of history and Indigenous studies, and he is going to share his insights as to why it is that Indigenous issues are not being discussed much in this federal election. All right. Let's see if I can do this one instead to give, there we go, give him more screen visibility.
Cody Grote, thank you so much for chatting with us. Indigenous issues have been absent throughout this federal campaign, quite different from when Justin Trudeau ran in previous elections. Can you explain what happens when these issues are not discussed?
I feel the number one part of the dialogue that we're hearing this election is sovereignty. And when we hear Canadian sovereignty really being promoted as the election issue, it in some ways by necessity erases this question of Indigenous sovereignty. And I think that's extremely problematic because that's where we've been making headway in a lot of these conversations, is recognizing us as sovereign nations. And when we focus on that Canadian nationalism and that Canadian sovereignty, the dialogue shifts, and that's going to shift every associated issue that relates to Indigenous peoples in this country.
Cody, are you a bit worried that because these Indigenous issues are not being talked about enough in this campaign, does that mean Indigenous issues will not be important when Parliament resumes after the election, no matter who wins?
I think that's a really valid question, and if you look at both the Liberal and Conservative parties, which have now released their platforms, you see that there is quite an absence in anything in relation to Indigenous peoples. The Conservative platform, which came out April 22nd, has conversation and language about our Indigenous peoples, which seems to me a little bit antiquated from what we've seen in recent dialogue. We've also seen the Conservative Party trying to shift the language and the funding towards sole and individual First Nations governance. I think there's some value in that, but I think it's also trying to alleviate some of the federal government's responsibilities, that nation-to-nation, crown-to-nation relationships. So I think we have to be careful of some of that language and how it's being introduced. When it comes to the Liberal platform, I'm surprised to see some of the policy planks that they're acting on. For example, expanding reserve land and expanding reserve territories is included in the Liberal platform. So I think that we're not seeing it as discussed as I think it needs to be. We're seeing in the platforms, in some platforms it is really not mentioned at all. In other platforms it is there to an extent, but the dialogue definitely is not reflecting the concerns that need to be addressed.
Cody, what are some Indigenous topics you think party leaders should be talking about right now?
I think obviously the dialogue of reconciliation, we're at 10 years to the TRC in 2025, so we're going to be acknowledging that 10-year anniversary in the coming weeks and months. And I think one thing that we need to recognize is how the majority of the calls to action have not been addressed. We have calls to justice from the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls National Inquiry. Again, those have not been addressed. So I think when we have this general dialogue about reconciliation that federal governments like to act upon, we also have very clear and tangible actions that have been requested over the years, and we're not acting upon those. We've not seen those acted upon. So when we acknowledge the 10th anniversary of the TRC, we also have to recognize there's a lot of work that needs to be put in that's not been done yet.
Vancouver Island Conservative candidate Aaron Gunn, whose social media posts against Indigenous people have sparked a lot of controversy, Pierre Poilievre has decided to stand by him. Should Indigenous people be worried about this?
I think they should be. I think one thing that we're seeing is the federal Conservative Party is trying to fit a lot of different interests into the same party tent. I think we're probably seeing some fractures in that tent now, where we're seeing perhaps more of a progressive conservative wing trying to fight against this more socially conservative wing. But Pierre is trying to cater to that socially conservative wing, which is using this rhetoric that is Indigenous, residential school denialist, some of that language. So again, perhaps it won't reflect the actions of the government if it were to be elected, but the fact that the federal party leader is catering to that rhetoric is definitely concerning.
Finally, Cody, do you think Indigenous people will make their voices heard in this election? And is there a lot at stake here?
One thing that we often see is we see some reserve communities or some First Nations saying that, this is a foreign election. This is a national government that is not our sovereign nations. So we see some First Nations denying Elections Canada from having polling places within reserve lands and within reserve territories. I think that's entirely valid. And again, we're seeing this rhetoric of Canadian sovereignty being really pushed this election, and that's minimizing this language and rhetoric of Indigenous sovereignty. So in my opinion, we're probably going to see consistent voting turnout from First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities compared to other elections. But as we know, that's been historically low for a number of reasons.
Cody Grote is the assistant professor at the Western University of Ontario. Cody, thank you for speaking with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, kids and cubs, there you go. A lot of people, with the election being so much in the first part of it, everything Trump and sovereignty and all that kind of stuff, a lot of issues did get pushed to the back burner. And a lot of people didn't get to see themselves in this election. That's one of the reasons why looking at the party platforms is very important. As Kit Tavi G noticed in the chat there, not everything makes it to the front line, but there's still a lot of other things in there, and some people have thought of them. So it's always good to check out the platforms to make sure that, like I said, not everything that got its own day during the campaign was still addressed. So, so while there is things, it doesn't seem that it is a big movement. And yes, I too am surprised by the fact that nobody has mentioned the fact that there are still some boil water advisories, and nobody has made a full-throated commitment to continue on that path to make sure that they are indeed all lifted. All right. Kids and cubs, I think that's going to be everything for now. I think we have a show. We hope that you love listening to us, because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring, and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really, really appreciate it when you do. It means the world to us. If you are listening to us on the go because you are a very busy Canadian that is out there making democracy happen, taking care of your family, making your community better, all that kind of stuff, well then, hey, you don't have to miss an episode, because we're portable. You can catch the ears-only version of our show, the podcast, by scanning that QR code, and that's made available to you thanks to the Ray Girl. If you're listening, podpage.com/the-true-north-eager-beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. When you go to our Podpage site, sorry, my eyes are really, really itchy today. When you go to the Podpage site, you will find the subscribe button. Just click on that, and when we have something that comes fresh off the bandwidth, it will come directly to you. If you would like to support us in other ways, kids and cubs, then you can do that by going to our YouTube page. Surf on down to True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated, and make like Kit Elaine and Kit Cassie and click on our buttons. Like, share, and subscribe. They're just waiting for you to give them a little click. It makes us so happy when you do that, and it very much helps us with the algorithm, so thanks for that. And if you are listening on podcast version, particularly Apple Podcasts, stars and reviews help us with the algorithm a lot. So please do leave us a review and some stars. Every little bit helps, right? So thank you for all of that. If you would like to help us in other ways, kids and cubs, we do incur some financial costs to bring this show to you. And if you would like to help us with those, we would be very, very grateful for that assistance. And you can do that by going to the Emergency Hydration Fund here at the Beaver Lodge. That's what we affectionately call it. It's our tip jar. And you can find it at our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. And you can just make a little contribution there. And that lets us know that you like what it is that we are doing and you want to encourage us to do more, as has Kit Diane, who sent us a little something the other day and said, "Thank you for the hard work and up-to-date electoral coverage." Well, thank you so much for your generous donation. And we have a couple of more to read into for you, kids and cubs, on the show. So we will find those for you and be able to thank the people who have been good to us. Kids and Cubs, as you may have noticed at the beginning of the episode, I mentioned that this is the start of season 5, because on the 26th of April was our debut in podcast form. So, yes, we have 4 under our belt, and we look forward to many more seasons with you. And we also forgot on the 20th of April to celebrate our own birthday. April 20th is when True North Eager Beaver started for the first time as a blog on the Facebook. And on the Facebook, I'm talking like an old person now. On the Facebook, when we had the blog. But that's where we started 14 years ago on the 20th of April. So for all of you who have been so good to us, who have either been with us since, the blog days, or since the start of the podcast days, and have joined us since, you're all members of the Damn Fam. It's been nice to grow with you over the time. And here's looking to hopefully 14 years more with all of you. But you've made this, you make this a joy. And I am just so glad that I get to share all of this with you, and that you're out there and you're listening and you let me know. And that matters. So thanks, for all of that. Another thank you here. Oh boy, there's a lot of email that are coming in. But from Kit T. Wigmore, who sent us a little something saying, "Always enjoy the blend of humor, insight, sources, and chats with the Damn Fam." So thank you so much for that, Kit T. Wigmore. That's such a beautiful donation. We are very, very grateful to receive this. And we also received something, if I'm not mistaken, from Kid Wendy. If I'm not, but I cannot seem to find it off the top of my head here. I thought I'd made sure that all the contributions had little stars next to them so that I could find them very, very quickly, but I have not. So I will have to go dig for that. But we do have one more person that did send us something, and we will make sure that we get thanks to you when we're able to find the note again. All right. Let's see, what else do we have? Because democracy is something that you do, kids and cubs have been paying attention on the show. We have been telling you about the Manitoba Progressive Conservative leadership race. Well, that did take place ultimately on Saturday, and the winner of the race was indeed announced. And it was a bit of an interesting race in that it was Winnipeg Blue Bomber, or is it Winnipeg Blue Bomber against Winnipeg Blue Bomber, or CFL player against CFL player? It might be going up. My sports knowledge is not that particularly great when it comes to former CFL players, I must admit. So, but I do believe that it might have been 2 CFL players who did once play for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and the result came in, and Abi Khan has been selected as the new party leader. He got 50.4% of available points and will succeed as the leader. According to CBC here, Bartley Kives is the journalist. Manitoba Progressive Conservatives have selected Fort White MLA Obi Khan to serve as the party's new leader in another close contest between an established member of the party caucus and a populist conservative outsider. In a vote conducted by mail-in ballot, Khan defeated Wally Doddridge, who owns a hotel and ecotourism business in Churchill, Manitoba, winning 2,198.8 points under a weighted ballot system to Doddridge's 2,163.2. Wow, that's very close. That's 35.6 points only separating both. Party Leadership Selection Committee Chair Brad Zadner announced Saturday at the Radisson Hotel in downtown Winnipeg. Khan's victory gave him 50.4% of the available 4,362 points, while Doddridge received 49.6% of the available points. The close result arrived following a 6-month leadership race. Khan said after the announcement he was paying more attention to the result of the race than he did to the small margin of his victory. Quote, "I think my previous life in football really prepared me for this. It was really back into game day mode," said Khan, a former offensive lineman in the Canadian Football League. The PC leadership contest was sparked by the resignation of former Manitoba Premier Heather Stephenson, who stepped down as party leader in early 2024, months after her PCs lost the fall 2023 provincial election to Wab Kinu's NDP. Following her departure, the party appointed Lac Dubonnet MLA Wayne Iwasco as interim leader and decided on a lengthy contest to select a new permanent one. The party gave prospective contestants 6 months to sign up for the race and another 6 months to campaign, partly to avoid a repeat of the party's disputed 2021 leadership race between Stephenson and former Conservative MP Shelley Glover. The race was also close. Stephenson won by 363 votes. Steinbach MLA Kevin Gortson, who served as Manitoba's interim premier for 2 months in 2021, said he doesn't believe the small margin of victory for Khan means very much. Quote, "The reality is, I think these days in politics, every election seems to be close," said Gortson, who endorsed Khan's campaign. Now it's up to Obi to prove that he can bring the party together. Khan, who was first elected to the Manitoba legislature in 2022 by-election, was endorsed by 10 out of 20 members of the PC caucus ahead of Saturday's vote. During the lengthy leadership race, he positioned himself as better able to lead the opposition party out of the provincial political wilderness on the basis he already has a seat in the legislature. Khan made few policy announcements during the campaign. He promised to pursue more public-private partnerships within the healthcare system and provide municipalities with an undisclosed portion of provincial sales tax revenue. Khan becomes the first Muslim as well as first Canadian from a South Asian ethnic background to lead the Manitoba Progressive Conservatives. The new leader said one of his first tasks will involve reaching out to all party members, including those who voted for Doddridge, to ensure the party is ready to defeat the New Democrats in the provincial election expected in 2027. Quote, "Wab Kinu, we all know him well with that smile, is an actor. He places priority on staging grand announcements. He loves the applause, but when it dies down, nothing follows," Khan said of the current prime minister. Quote, we, your PC team, your PC elected members, will hold them to account, and that starts again today." Doddridge did not address reporters following the announcement of the leadership vote result. Mike Patton, Doddridge's campaign manager, said he accepted the results. According to party figures, Doddridge received 53 more raw votes than Khan, 3,387 to 3,334. A total of 29 ballots were spoiled. The party utilized a weighted voting system that prevented candidates from stacking votes within a single constituency association. Patton said the process and system were fair. Prior to the vote, Doddridge said he planned to run in the forthcoming Manitoba by-election in Spruce Woods. Patton could not say whether that remains the case. Doddridge did not receive endorsements from any of members of the PC caucus. Early in the campaign, he described some PC MLAs as lazy, but declined to name the elected officials in question. During the campaign, Doddridge positioned himself as the more conservative of the two candidates and mused about removing the word progressive from the party name. Doddridge promised to fast-track the developments of Manitoba mines and build a second port on Hudson Bay, claiming European customers would foot the bill for the proposed mega project. Patrick Allard, who supported Doddridge's candidacy, shook hands and exchanged contact information with Khan following the decision. Allard said he now supports Khan because he is a PC member first. Quote, "We have the same goal, and that's winning in 2027, getting rid of this disastrous NDP," Allard said. "Having multiple voices at the table is never a bad thing, so we might have a different way to get there, but we will get there." The Progressive Conservatives currently hold 20 seats in the 57-seat Manitoba legislature, while the governing NDP holds 34. Minutes after Khan's victory was announced, the New Democrats published an attack website called obbythankstrump.ca. A total of 10,999 PC members were eligible to vote in the 2025 leadership race. Xander said 7,108 members completed ballots and 6,750 of those were verified by party officials. The 6,750 ballots cast fall short of the 16,807 ballots submitted in the 2021 PC leadership race. And there you go. So, the new leader of the Manitoba Progressive Conservative Party, Abhi Khan, and the less populist and stringently conservative of the two on offer. Now, of course, that's relative to the other. How much that's going to be the case in real life remains to be seen. But there you go. We have a new party leader in Canada. Also, because democracy is something that you do, voting day is tomorrow. Vote, 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 vote. Make a plan. Bring friends with you. Bring your ID. Remember, if you've recently moved, you can also have someone vouch for you if they live in the same electoral district and have their ID. But do go and vote. Polling stations will be open for 12 hours today, and they do shift according to a time zone. So please consult those, but I will have some information here for you with regards to that from Elections Canada to get to you with regard to your polling station hours. Our show will start at 6:30 tonight, so please join us. We have a live broadcast for results, and we have a whole bunch of guests joining us today. We will have Sean Rouse, High Tide Hilda. We will have former Mayor of St. John, Don Darling. We will have host of the O Show, Laura Babcock, joining us. We will have Josh Mirando, who did the platform review with us the other day. So that will be great. We will have Joel McLeod of the 905er with us as well. MPP Tyler Watt in Ontario will be joining us for a little bit tonight. We'll have economist Dave Gray. We will have Adam McGillivray join us, who, if you watched our BC election special, was my co-host for the evening over there. And a couple of others that I've probably not named. So join us tonight. We are going to present a bit of an alternative to you to what the main networks will be showing. Hopefully just as informative, a little bit entertaining, right? And yeah, we'll be able to keep each other company over the course of the day. Well, the course of the evening, I should say. Voting hours, Newfoundland time. This is your local time. The polls open at 8:30 and stay open till 8:30. Same thing for Atlantic time, 8:30 to 8:30, your time. If you're in the Eastern time zone, polls open at 9:30 and close at 9:30. If you're in the Central time zone, polls are open 8:30 to 8:30. If you are in Saskatchewan, because they don't do daylight savings time, your voting hours are 7:30 to 7:30 for this general election. If you're on Mountain, open 7:30 to 7:30, and if you're on Pacific time, your polls are open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And those at different times staggered throughout the country allow for most of the vote to come in at the same time on returns night. So we're going to have some first votes come in early around 7 o'clock Eastern time from Newfoundland, and then 7:30 from Atlantic Canada. And then there's not going to be very much more coming in until about 9:30. So there'll be about 2 hours where there won't be new results, but the results from Atlantic Canada and Newfoundland will still keep coming in before we get to the bulk of it. And at that time, results from Ontario, Quebec, Manitoba, Alberta and Saskatchewan, Nunavut and Northwest Territories will all be coming in at the same time. And then half an hour later at 10 Eastern, results for British Columbia and Yukon Territory will be coming in. It could be a long night, particularly if we're looking to see whether or not Pierre Poilievre wins his seat, given the longest ballot initiative. And in that electoral district, they're going to start counting votes 6 hours earlier rather than 2 hours earlier, counting the advanced vote in order to deal with all those ballots. There was a special disposition given. So hopefully we'll get results at the same time as everybody else with that bit of a head start. All right. That's everything that I've got for you, kits and cubs. Oh, remember, if there are any dirty tricks, remember, Elections Canada will never, ever, ever, ever call to let you know that a polling station has changed. All the information would be on their website, and you will have to do that. So if you get any information that your polling station has changed by phone call, that's not real. All right, and you should report that to Elections Canada. Other than that, I think that's everything that you need to know, kits and cubs. 2 pieces of ID, one government issues that has your name and your address. If you have a driver's license, that will usually be sufficient. And if not, then a piece of government ID that has your name and an official document that you receive in the mail, like a bill or whatnot, that shows your address. That will definitely be enough. Your voting card serves as your proof of residence. If you don't have it, you can vote. Right? So if you've lost your voting card, if you misplaced it, don't worry about it. You can still vote. You just need your 2 pieces of ID or someone who can vouch for you, and all of that will be taken care of. So everybody, do go vote. My words of wisdom, kits and cubs, parents, if you're out there and you're going to vote today, bring your children who are not of voting age with you. Children who watch their parents vote are more likely to become voters themselves when they grow older. So let's create the next generation of voters. All right. That's all I got for you today, kits and cubs. I am very, very excited about this evening. Hopefully, a lot of you will join us and we will have a fantastic time together. All right. I am off for now. I'll get a little bit of a rest because tonight will be indeed a marathon. We'll go until we know if it's a majority, a minority, if Pierre keeps his seat. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be a marathon, though. So send me a lot of anything that you can help to do to help keep this beaver moist all throughout the night would be very, very helpful. All right, kids and cubs, that's enough for me this morning. And I will see you later tonight. And that means it is time for me, kids and cubs, to cue the cock. And here we go. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. I realize that I forgot to bring you a little bit of information because we got started on the show right away. There was additional polling information that I did not bring you because I did not bring you the CBC poll tracker. So what it has, this is as of the 27th at 10:47 p.m., which might be the last numbers they post unless they do an update today. But they are showing Liberals 189, Conservatives 125, Bloc Québécois 23, New Democrats 5, and Green 1 here, with about 42.8% support for the Liberals and 39.2% for the Conservatives going into the final night. A 70% probability of Liberals winning a majority, 19% of winning a plurality, 10% of the Conservatives winning a plurality, and 1% chance of the Conservatives winning a majority. With Polling Canada, their final spread is 4 points. National, the Liberals 43, Conservatives 39. They received 12 new polls over the last rush, all with a range of Liberal leads of 2 to 6, with Liaison at 2, Main Street at 2, Abacus at 2, Nanos at 3, Angus Reid Forum, Innovative, Ipsos, and Palace at 4, MQO and Research Company at 5, and Ecos at 6. And for the pre-market stuff, because we are looking at that too these days, given everything that's going on south of us, the Asia Pacific markets, treading water. The biggest down is 0.6% on the Shenzhen Composite, and the biggest up is 1.27% on the Bombay Sensex India. Treading water a bit. European markets are open again, nothing big, everything positive, but in the range of 0.2% to 1% up on the FTSE 100 in the UK and the CAC 40 in France, respectively. And then for North America, given that markets are open, the Dow is marginally up 0.27%, the S&P down 0.03%, NASDAQ marginally down 0.3%, the Russell 2000 up 0.4%, the S&P TSX up 0.4%. So again, pretty much treading water here today. No big movement at the moment to start the day. All right, that's all I've got for you. We will see you later tonight, kids and cubs. Rest up. Try not to panic too much. Get your celebratory champagne or non-alcoholic sparkling and bubbly ready in case we might need it. And a box of Kleenex on the other side in case we might need it. And try not to stress too much until we actually get the results. But do make sure you vote. Vote, 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 vote. All right. We'll see you later. Bye, everyone.